Hello? Hello. Jeez, the buttons this hour of the morning. Hello and happy Thursday. Hope you're all keeping well. Good morning. You are joining us here live from Tipperary, where it's 6 degrees. Bring back the summer, you know. But I hope you're keeping well. We're going to be continuing on with our pilot training. We're focusing on Navigraph Academy right now. Today we're going to start phase 2, which is going to cover ground operations. And this is pretty cool because, well, a lot of the theory stuff from ground school, learning more than just sitting in the plane flying along, this is where we can focus things on navigation, learning about the aircraft, performance, checklists, the flows, all of this kind of stuff, all the way down from understanding taxiway markings, taxiway speeds, what we can do in and around an airport, and very handy for flight simulation, some of the real world stuff as well. But if you're going to be looking at transitioning to online flight, be it VATSIM or any of this is really going to help. Speaking of VATSIM, a little bit later on, we're going to do a briefing for tonight's flight. Flying out of LAX, we're going to head over to Phoenix in Arizona, taking the 737. And I have my gear ready to rock, so I'm looking forward to a immersive flight experience session. I don't know, but yeah. How are you anyway? You know, are you working and lurking, or maybe you took the day off, or perhaps maybe you have every day off, but you're very welcome in. And yes, there's a bit of learning to do on today's lesson on today's stream, but we'll have fun, as we always do. I've been looking into, I'm trying to figure out my next YouTube video, and I'm focusing on background apps, that are silently running in the background, but they might impact on your sim. And I've been testing over the last couple of days. I found a couple, so, that video might come out next week or the week after. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm still working on it. Because you can't say, do this and you'll be grand, and then someone does it and they're not grand. You know what I mean? So, yes, that's what we're working off today. But anyway, who's here, look? That's brilliant. Viper Strike is in Trinidad. What about Tobago? Good to see you, Viper. Mr. Minimite is here. Spitfire RAF 100. Hello. Good to see you, man. Viper, thank you for 55 in a row. Flying Dive is here. Good morning. Hope you're well, buddy. Malky Mac is here. Welcome in. Gar Gaiman, hello to County Galway. Hope you're well. To Blaze, a very good morning to you. Mr. Minimite says, does anyone else feel like their house might be about to blow away? Is it windy? It's kind of windy, yeah, sure. There's mad weather on the way. We'll be checking out Venture Sky later on, looking at the weather for this evening. But certainly over on the east coast of the US, northeast coast in particular, there's all sorts of stuff hitting them. Wind and snow and, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I think where we're going as well, I mean, we're flying out of LA over towards Phoenix. It's a little bit further south, so we'll have to check our weather because there's wintry weather heading south in the US as well, But let's see what happens. Norse Viking, good morning. Hope you're well. Apache is here. 98 Vulcan, good evening. Commander Balosh, hope you're well. Who's this now? Indiana. Good to see you, man. Crafty Tigers, good morning. Stick Figure is here. Sim Guy, hope all is well. Malky has watched 5 in a row. You're very, very much indeed. Cheers, buddy. Who's this now? Billand, welcome in. Alison Johnson, did you see what she did? Before breakfast, 10 gifted tier 1 subs going out here to everyone on the Twitch side of the house. Thank you very, very much indeed, Alison Johnson. And lads, if you got a tier 1 sub, thanks to the lovely Alison, do be sure to say thank you. Incredible support. Thank you, Ali. You're very kind. Let's have a look here now. There she is. Good morning, Murph, and good morning, Fireflies. You're very welcome in. What has you here today? Let me see. Abandons, good to see you. Stu Snape, good morning. Just Roy is in the house. Just pressed the button. Good morning. Hope all is well, Roy. Where is this now? You have the day off. Well, lucky you. B. Carlo, how are you? Hope all is well. Super Potato, how many monitors in that room? Don't think, give us a number. 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jesus, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I was right. Haha, brilliant. Does 11. Excellent news, right? The electricity bill is off the friggin' charts. Max Stallion, good to see you, buddy. It is a bit windy, says the Impossible Face. Good morning. Willow, how much? Top of the morning to you. Hope you're well. Mr. Minimite says, it's sideways rain in my part of the world. Is that the dryer beeping? Something's beeping. Sideways rain is the worst kind, apparently they're exploding trees in the Midwest because of the mad weather. What? It's blooming freezing in the Toon this morning. Nasty, strong easterlies up at the Janie. It's not too bad here. It's cold, But yeah, me dryer is beeping at me. My favourite ever things about Minnesota are that sometimes it gets too cold to snow and sometimes the tree explode. Jesus. What? 20 more subs till I hit 1,000 gifted subs. Jeez. Don't tell the bank manager, Ali. I can explain. I bought socks. Thank you very, very much. That's insane support. Insane. Heisenberg, good morning. Why am I up this early? Why are you up this early, Heisenberg? Are you mad? 33, Johnny, good to see you. I was Mac on YouTube, but then you switched to Trip or to Twitch. Welcome in, buddy. Welcome in. Underpants must be... no, it's a towel, actually. It's not the underpants drying, it's the towel. But yes, next step, profit. Indeed. Stage 1, collect underpants. Who was that? That was South Park. The Underpants Gnomes. Yes. Kerbelet is here. Good to see you, buddy. Bill Fury, welcome in. Hello from Melbourne, Australia. Hello from Tipperary, Ireland. Good to see you. Mr. Corn Polo, greetings from Germany. Hope all is well. You're very welcome aboard. And yeah, as I said, we've a bit to be doing learning today. So, grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and we'll kind of edge our way into it. Do you know? Your keyboard never works right for Twitch for some reason. Really? The stream is so much better on Twitch. I can see loads more. Really? Well, you're very welcome in. Yes, it's all things and stuff and, lights. How many lights do I have? Jesus, one, two. Why isn't that one working? Balls! Hang on. I need to fix a light. Is that turned? Oh, it's just not turned on. How do I fix this mess? Janie then. There are 4 lights. No, there's 1, 2, 3, 4... 5. That's not working though. Right, I need to fix that one. I don't know how it'll look though. We'll have a look. That YouTube video you've been working on sounds great. I've got a second monitor with all kinds of stuff running on. Yeah. No, I need to be right. There are certain things people will tell you when it comes to Windows. You shouldn't have this turned on. And in actual fact, they make no difference to the sim. Like zero impact, right? There might be ways of keeping Windows running okay, but they just don't impact on the sim. There are things, however, that do impact on your sim, and that's what we're going to be looking in. And I also want to kind of target stuff, which I'm working at as well. It's getting the most out of your RAM, because RAM is expensive. Like the idea now of saying, I'll just throw another stick of RAM in there. Yeah, well, after you sell your house, because the price has gone ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So I want to look at that. So yeah, there'll be a video coming on it soon. But if you guys have ideas or stuff that works, let us know and I'll take it as my credit. I'm only joking. But if you have ideas, let us know and I'll give you a shout in the video. Do you know? So anyway, yes, ground operations or ground school. Now, as part of your real world PPL, you have quite a lot of theory. You have the ground school element, and this is where you learn all the theory. Now, the theory when it comes to being a pilot, it covers vast amount of information: weather, human factors, radio telephony, the legalities, the laws of flying, right? Also a lot on the physics of the aircraft, how it actually works. There's so much. There's books, literally books that you have to study, and it's like everything, right? Your driving test or an exam. The exam it's supposed to be there to test your knowledge across a very kind of wide kind of sphere. Unfortunately, what happens, most places, including education places, they prepare you not to, provide you with the knowledge. They prepare you just to pass the exam, which in a way, right, okay, look, you got the dotted line, you have the cert, I know this. But when it comes to aviation, because it is so vast, because there is so much information there, and we're always trying to learn. Flight simmers are no different. Anyone involved with aviation, we're always trying to learn new things. And that's what makes the whole thing very impressive. And because aviation just happens to be one of those industries that's constantly pushing forward in terms of technology and features and all this sort of jazz, it means that level of training or learning is amplified and the requirement becomes very, very high indeed. Flight simmers, while there are absolute differences between simulation versus real world, there's an awful lot of similarities. And you'd be surprised, especially now when it comes to the modern sims. And like, yeah, we can all have a bit of a whinge and a moan about, my sim isn't doing this, me sim. We forget that, well, just enjoy the experience. Just enjoy flight simming, because it is a great hobby. Plus what we have in the likes of Microsoft Flight Sim, when it comes to exploring the world, planet Earth, right? Without any weirdness, except for the bridges. But like, you know what I mean? So we tend to kind of lose track of that, of actually how accurate these sims are. And you get into the discussion, it's a game. No, it's a sim. So's your face. That means nothing. People who are spending their time talking about those topics, leave them over there in the corner. Just get out, yeah, grand. I'll be back to you there now in a second. My phone is ringing, right? We're here to learn. And it could be following some of the real world procedures that we can then, simulate ourselves, or it could be tweaking your system. It could be learning about history or group flights or whatever. But that's what we're all drawn to, which is the learning element. And don't ever worry, these people are way more knowledgeable or they're way better than me. Everyone has to start somewhere. So it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid question is the one question that isn't asked. That's how it works here. So if you do have questions, well, sure, ask. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't know the answer, I'll bluff. But then I'll go off and find the information for you and come back to you with the actual stated answer. I hate using they or them. Oh, they said I should do this. They or them. They never show up when you need them. Who said that? Oh, they did. Who? They're outside there. You know what I mean? So we try and keep things factual if we can. Anyway, that was a bit of a rant, wasn't it? Brilliant. And very important, Roy, good man yourself, if the question is missed, because I had to be busy here, from my side of the fence, it's all like, did you ever see the one with the monkey on the bicycle with the what are they called? The symbols? That's me, peddling, right? So if I do miss something in the chat, please know I'm not ignoring you. If I need to ignore someone, and I've never have to, well, twice I think I've done it, live streaming, you're banned, right? We don't entertain idiots. There's only one idiot here, and that's me. So if I forget something, it's not intentional. Or if I gloss over a comment, shout it again. Just don't be an idiot. Like if you're spamming, or you've said something kind of, pernickety, well then I might glance over it. But yes. That's how it works. Here's one. Do you have any news, any new ideas for Patreon? Loads, Roy. Its timing is everything. But yeah, loads. So Patreon, here's another side quest. So with Patreon, my initial plan is stuff outside of our flight simulation experience. And what I mean by that is, there's no point putting things relative to flight simming behind a paywall, right? Patreon is designed for me to support a business, right? But also by providing information outside of live streaming in terms of the content that I do. It focuses on how I do what I do, which is more to do with lighting, sound, all that jazz, the systems that are at play, or at least that's the start of it on Patreon. So that's what I've started with. We have a live streaming guide up and running, and it goes through, you want to be a streamer? Grand. This is what I've learned. I'm not an expert in this at all, but I've been doing it for quite some time. You learn a lot of stuff. And like that, as with aviation, you learn more. You know what I mean? So that's what we're doing. So it is a Star Trek mouse mat. It is the USS Enterprise. Yes. From Timu. But Lusty is here. Good to see you. The Sin Buggy, welcome aboard. But yeah, like there's other stuff when it comes to Patreon. Definitely. But I don't want to be putting flight simulation stuff specifically there. It's more maybe if we're making tools or building stuff that kind of enhance maybe. But that's the idea. Everything else, it's open market. We'll keep it on Discord. The website is there. I gave the website a bit of an update. So if you have ideas, Roy in particular, your ideas when it comes to maybe scenery creation or editing, I think there could be a lot of options on our website with blogs. Do you know what I mean? We can pop them up on the website. People are going to read them. Rather than using that. Murph, my 5th year of streaming is coming up on the 31st of January. 5 years, Ali. That's mad, isn't it? It's been some roller coaster, isn't it? It's brilliant. I have to say, it's brilliant. But congratulations, Mrs. 5 years. Jeez, that's fantastic, isn't it? Toto was here. Good morning. Hope all is well. Willow, how much? Welcome in. Where is this now? As we try and catch up, do you have any tips about choosing where to fly? I always end up flying around the same area in the UK. Johnny, I was chatting to a fella called Cole, and he's developing a website called... hang on. I don't want to make a mess of this. Where is it now? Hang on. Hold hard. Hold hard now, Bijani. Now, let's have a look. I'll give you a link to this website because it's something new. It's called skyplanner.to, right? I'll give you the link to it. And basically, what he's trying to do is build a scheduling service. Now, we have schedules and stuff that are, as part of our virtual airline. Plus, of course, you have schedules when it comes to, say, intentions and with on air. There's a lot of options for figuring out where to fly, how to fly. I would recommend, if you always want a reason to go flying, on air and say intentions, they will tick all of the boxes. You add in our virtual airline, Firefly Air, it'll add even more. You can do ad hoc missions, you can do company routes, you can do duty schedules. There's loads of ideas. This one is quite new. Sky Planner is the name of it. And basically, it's to keep things simple. You're going to fly from A to B or A to B to C in a certain time frame, certain distance. But it's there to kind of give you ideas of what to do, you see. So, check it out and see what you think. Where is this now? It looks like it is a mouse match, yeah. My cooperation for some stuff still applies to it, says Roy. Excellent. To relieve the pressure, indeed. Tiny contributions for tiny hands. Tiny hands even. Steiny, good to see you, man. Steiny's like Scott, or Scott is like Steiny. I don't know who's who, but it's not a Murph, it's good to see you. It's like, there's your small hands. Or, how's that hair loss going? Right? They usually start off with a crippling slag and then they're grand, Brilliant. But anyway, where is this now? Murph Man Cave scenery add-on, right? It certainly has been fun, says Ali. Yeah, it's awesome fun, isn't it? Filthy, good to see you. 65 streams in a row. I've forgotten what the outside world looks like. Brilliant. Don't go out there. It's not safe. Cracker, good morning. Soaring AJ. Very good morning to you. Hope you're well. Bellbro is here. Good morning, buddy. Hope you're well and having a great day. Indiana says, is it possible for Xbox users to use VA or not, since we can't do the online ATC? No, you can 100% operate within Firefly Air. That's our virtual airline, because we have a manual pilot report, or PIREP. You'll put in your destination time, date, airports, arrival time, date, and airports. And usually we just ask you for a screenshot of your flight or the summary. Boop, pop it up to us, and then it's added to your profile. So it's very good. WinHance is a great open source tool to remove Windows bloat, says Super Potato. Yeah, but this is the risk. If you're using general gaming, the Windows bloating or debloat stuff, yeah, it's very good. When it comes to flight sim, it's not that good. And the reason being is there are certain processes that must run in the background, because the sim, in its wizardry, if something happens, be it like a crash report needs to be done, or hardware scan needs to be done, or some sort of report, the debloating stuff tends to turn a lot of that off. Now, it will give you a more responsive Windows, but it doesn't give you a more responsive sim. So there are things to watch on that. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, this is why I use extra vitamin D tablets to compensate for the lack of being outside. I'm the very same, Roy. I need to take vitamin D tablets. Everyone in Ireland needs to take vitamin. We don't get the weather, but that's what happens here. But yeah, try that Indiana on Firefly Air. Have a gawk at it, Good day to Killswitch. Working and lurking. You're very welcome in, buddy. Good to see you, man. Now, let me see. 617. Venom. Good to see you, Venom. Hope all is well. The Crazy Man from Ireland. Good morning to County Cork. Hope you're well. El Bapino is here. Bonjour, mon ami. Good to see you, buddy. How's she cutting? How's all in France? More cowpel. Cody is here. Good to see you, Cody. Did I miss anyone now? Are we all caught up and up to date and now we're laughing? I think we're laughing. Right, shall we ramble over and have a look at the lesson that we're going to have a gawk with today? Paul Martin, good to see you. Who's this now? The Rejector, welcome in. Great to see everyone here. One of the best things I've done with Microsoft Flight Sim was to get my 11-year-old son a copy so that we can fly together. He flies where we fly and the aircraft. That's so awesome. That's awesome. I love that. I love that, B. Carlo. Like, again, as I said, like we tend to get distracted by the noise. We have a great simulator. We really have a great sim. Just enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's like, don't get caught up in the caught up, you know. Not to say things don't need to be fixed. Of course they do. But, you know, pull ourselves back from the brink of to ooh. Do you know? That's the lesson for today. But anyway, who's this? Trippy, good to see you, buddy. Roy says, regarding the debloating stuff, I can absolutely recommend using Chris Titus's tech tool. It empties the unnecessary stuff without messing up the sim. Ooh. Roy, that's what, yeah, do you know, there'd be a great discussion on this. Maybe a blog or a video. I think it'd be interesting. Because like the background apps that I'm looking at, specifically, most of us have them, right? Most of us have these apps running and we're not really aware of it. And like, usually the simple solutions aren't that simple, or they're not that obvious, right? So, yeah, I think there'd be a great discussion there. The Impossible Face says, it's one of those days where I'm gutted. I can't fire up the sim until after 3. Right. Nothing worse. I'm too ugly for showing my face before the camera. We could do like a podcast or just do a written gadget. Do you know? I think because everyone at some stage has managed to figure out something, be it a setting or a configuration file or something that has had a great impact on your sim, right? So, you know, for the new people coming along, they're like, why am I only getting 10 FPS and it's not very smooth? Which that's how it's all going to work, you see. Do you know? So, that's kind of how it works. So we'll see what the crack is. Someone just came into my house. Hang on, don't go anywhere. Hello. Walked in. Jason nearly fell. I must have scared them off. It's probably be that is in fact a good idea. Brilliant, Roy. Yeah, we'll do a thing. Eddie is here. Good morning. Muttley, good morning. Hope you're well. Ali says, no one is too ugly. Just remember, thinking about doing something is harder than doing it. Oh, look at the head in this. And I'm on camera. Jesus. You know, I know people, some of my friends, like, they'd be mortified. I just don't really care. I mean, I never really did. Appearances mean very little to me, of course, unless it's old mate on the, you know. Grand. The internet is full of madness. 777 says, a lot better than day one, Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. A day and a half of loading screens. 100%. And it's good to see you, 777. Welcome in, buddy. Super Potato says, or maybe getting Twitch swatted. Twitch swatted, you say? But yeah, like, I think, look, it's a phenomenal hobby that we have. And we're a distinct group of people in the flight sim community, whereby, you know, we're not your typical gamer. We're not like, we don't fall into that bell curve at all. We look at this in a very different light because we're using it to either enhance our skills or expand our knowledge base. Gaming, yes, there are elements of that where, you know, there's competition and having the crack and all, but we're a different breed. We're on a different frequency. Do you know? I have one of those cameras that's supposed to follow you. Mine turns away. Brilliant. Oh, yeah, my wife says indistinct. Yeah. But interesting. Right, will we jump into it? Come on over here and we'll do some learning. Welcome to this screen where things look slightly different. Tighten that gadget. Right, so what we're doing today is ground operations, and it's all part of phase 2. Now, phase 2 of the Navigraph virtual PPL, this is where it ends right now. But they're going to be adding more sections to it, right? Uniform Goose, good day, Goose. Welcome in. Cornwolf is here. Happy Thursday and a very happy birthday to Cornwolf, the absolute ledge. Oh, hang on, my light is broken. Hang on, I meant to fix this. Hang on now. I need to do this without completely shagging it. Where does this plug into? If I could find that out, lads. Oh, hang on, is that it? I'm going to unplug something now. And if it works, I'm a genius. If this doesn't work, I'll see you later.
Oh, Jesus.
Didn't you do? Didn't you do? Oh, Jesus. How'd you even? Easy now, look. Jesus, this is dangerous. Now. Jesus, right. Get up there now so we can see it. I could have broken everything. But yeah, happy birthday, Cornwolf. Hope you're well, man. Hope you're well. Now, how do I fix that light? Hang on, lads. Don't panic. Oh, Jesus. It's all part of the experience. Close that. Diddly-did-did-dee. There she be now. And you might say, Murph, that made absolutely no difference at all. Well, there's a science. There's a science to the positioning and the colour and there's a science, right? But anyway, so Navigraph. So we're going to go in over here and we're going to have a look at today's lesson. This is all the stuff here, right? And, well, a couple of things we need to do, right? So we'll go back into our courses. So we're looking at the virtual PPL. Now, the virtual PPL, we've already done the first part of it, phase 1. Next, it's going to be coming on to instrument flying and IFR approaches, really technical stuff. And if, once you know the foundation of how these things work, they're transferable into other aircraft, right? So if you're looking at, I just want to fly airliners, just like the real world, well, you got to start here. The reason why you're in a smaller aircraft, A, they're easier to fly. B, they're cheaper to run. C, they're smaller, so they can operate out of smaller airports. And there's more of those than there are large airports. You see where we're going with this. Anyway, the virtual PPL, we have completed part 1, or phase 1, 0 to solo, and we did our first solo flight. Now we're moving on to phase 2, and this is mainly encompassing visual navigation. Now, this is where, the full free element kind of starts slipping away because, well, Navigraph are pointing towards their product, which of course is Navigraph Charts. And I highly recommend this for anyone who's getting serious about flight simulation. Charts and Navigraph, it's more than just charts. It's a moving map. You can look at the weather. You can plan your route from it. It's a great bit of kit. Yes, it's costly. It's an annual cost, but it is brilliant. Nothing else comes close to Navigraph in flight simulation. You can use some of the real world stuff. I use Garmin Pilot. I have it here on the screen beside me. That's if it turns on. There it is. This is a real world EFB. But Navigraph for flight simming is absolutely brilliant, right? So ground operations. Today, we're going to be focusing specifically on the Cessna 172, but we're going to be delving a little bit deeper into it. We're going to be learning about how the thing actually works and how, as a pilot, do we know to make sure everything's working as expected. We're building these skill sets, but also this kind of muscle memory, understanding what your aircraft is doing. Because there is nothing worse in a sim, specifically when it comes to flight simulation. If you're flying online, you've lost track of what the aircraft is doing, you're asked to do a maneuver on ATC, or you're just doing a maneuver, something fails and you crash. You have a bad day at the office. And usually that happens because you've overlooked something or you have decided not to follow a checklist. Now, using checklists, we're getting into the realm of like more serious flying, right? There's a dot on my screen. But I will say, if you are using checklists with your flights, it will enhance your experience of flying. It just will. Whether or not you want to do Control E and just go flying, of course you can do all that, or you can then go for, well, let's delve into the simulation aspects of a flight simulator, because this is pretty much real world procedures, right? So we're going to start off the ground operations. So we're going to go into our lesson. So congratulations on our first solo flight, which was last week. We've earned our virtual wings. Now it's time to prepare for exploring the world. Ooh. Before we embark on our navigation flights, we'll dive deeper into the Cessna 172's technical system. In this lesson, we're going to practice performing thorough ground checks using the full checklists and learn how to navigate the airport with taxiway charts. Now, this is important. Why? Well, when we were doing all the previous lessons, they were starting us with the aircraft on the runway, ready for takeoff, and we wouldn't fly a route effectively, we'd either take off from the airport, do traffic patterns and come back, or we'd be just flying to do a maneuver and then that's it. There's far more to flying, thankfully, than just taking off and landing at the same airport, you see. So we've mastered maneuvering, but to travel from point A to point B, you must also understand and manage your aircraft. Today, we're going to focus on the 172's technical systems and the checklists that'll keep us safe. The Navigraph Academy Cessna model is equipped with a piston engine, as is the default Cessna 172. And it's powered by aviation gasoline called avgas. You've often heard of avgas, 100LL or 80LL. Fuel is stored in 2 wing tanks, one on each side, and they flow into the engine using gravity, aided by an engine-driven fuel pump. An electric fuel pump is available to prime the engine before start, which we're going to use today. Now, there are other aircraft that do not have these electronic fuel pumps. Some of them are just gravity fed. And you need to be very aware of that because, well, maneuvers will impact on the fuel, right? Also, if your fuel pump was to fail, that could create a catastrophic issue. But usually, wings level, gravity fed, you shouldn't have an issue. Now, there's far more than just the fuel tanks. You have fuel filters, you have fuel line pressure, you have all these stuff in the background. But as pilots, we just need to have a general understanding of what all this stuff is. You would bring in the professionals, your mechanics and technicians. They will deal with the inner workings, perforated fuel tanks, contaminated fuel tanks, all this kind of stuff. As pilots, we just need to have a very broad understanding of what this is. Now, other aircraft would feature fuel tanks that could be low down. Anyone give me an example of an aircraft that the fuel could be beneath the wing, or indeed in line or with the engine, or indeed in line with the engine? Fuel tanks below the engine or in line with the engine. Any examples of aircraft? Piper Warrior, Malky, very good. So the Warrior, right? It's a low wing aircraft. Therefore, well, gravity doesn't really work there because there's no natural flow of fuel going in, right? The Comanche has it as well. Anything with a low wing where the engine's up the front, how do we get the fuel out of that? You know what I mean? Now, usually, like your car, for example, fuel pump, your car has a fuel pump, unless it's electric. And if it's electric, we're having a different conversation. You're not invited to afternoon tea. But you know what I mean? Like your car will have a fuel pump in there as well. Now, we don't have a button, prime it. Some cars used to have the old choke and you can kind of manipulate, but there's no pre-prime the system. Everything's automatic in a car. When you put the key in the ignition, you start to turn it, your instruments light up, the fuel pump starts instantly. Quick blast of fuel, right? So you get the idea. Airline or airliners, for example, yes, they also have fuel pumps, and they also have redundancy fuel pumps. They have redundancy built into it, right? So when you're thinking about it, thinking, geez, how do they get the fuel tanks into the wings? Well, when you see the cross-section of a wing and all the spars that go across, that's where they tend to put the fuel in. One thing we need to consider, and, you know, this is why the Cessna in particular is very good. Fuel weighs. There's weight to fuel, right? Really, Murph? Yeah, it does. And if you're using fuel in different tanks, in this case, the Cessna has a left tank and it has a right tank. Now, the fuel valve setting can actually use both fuel tanks simultaneously, giving you the center tank or continuous fuel, right? However, if you're only going to select one of the tanks to be flying with, what might happen? If you're draining all the fuel out of one single tank and the other one's staying full, what could happen, right? Marcel says, plus they use that fuel as cooling systems for other stuff like hydraulics. Correct and right. It's a liquid. And in the air, especially with airliners, in the air, the wings, right, with the fuel, they act as a giant radiator, right? And some of that we'll see in future releases, in particular from FS Reborn, where, you know, there's cool stuff. Did I just switch Gibbo's lights off? You could have, Briggsy. You could have. So what could happen here is if you were to drain all the fuel out of one wing, two things. One, you could run out of fuel and stall the engine. Two, you now have a weight difference. The balance of the fuel is now different, and that's going to impact on the aerodynamics now of the aircraft, because the center of gravity, remember we learned about the center of gravity, it's now going off skew. It's going to a different side. Other aircraft, for example, the likes of the Cherokee, they don't have, the medium switch where it's feeding both fuel tanks simultaneously. You have to swap the tanks. Even the TBM has this. So when you go to swapping tanks, your fuel tanks, this is the fuel feed. And it's usually done by repetition from the pilot, right? They'll have it's muscle memory, or they'll have a little ping or an alarm that'll beep every 15 minutes to say, I need to change this. Your dryer's done again, right? Or in the likes of the TBM 850 or upwards, they have an automatic fuel. It's just like it's like an old motorized dyno. It works on a timer, so it'll flick every 5 to 10 minutes and so on. You know what I mean? You've never forgot to switch the tanks on the Piper, honest. You know what I mean? But it is something to be aware of. Keeping fuel in there, drastically important. But if you were to consider an aircraft that we have in the sim, which is very different than general aviation, think of the Inibill's, the jet trainer. You know, the what's it called? The Jetstar? Inibill's jet trainer. So the T-33, right? The T-33 aircraft, that has a very interesting fuel system. It works off the Shooting Star, correct and right, Zith. I think it works off, is it 4? There's definitely 3. So it has outer tanks, i.e. the wing tanks or the tip tanks. Then it has the wing main tanks. And then it has a center, or what they call a fuselage tank. And how that works is the engine is always being ran directly off the fuselage tank. Always. Therefore, the pilot, they have to be swapping the fuel or transferring the fuel from either the tip tanks or the wing tanks into the main fuselage tank. The aircraft cannot just say, right, I'm just going to take the fuel out of the wings. It's not designed to do that. So it can only use the fuel inside the fuselage. And what's dangerous about that is, with that particular aircraft, if you start to transfer fuel from the wing or the tip tanks into the fuselage, there's no automatic cutoff. There's no like little ball cocking there that'll say, right, stop the transfer of fuel. So what could happen, your fuel literally out over the wing, good luck. It'll overflow, right? And you just start leaking fuel. Not the most safest thing to have. And Greta just wouldn't be impressed. Other aircraft, complex aircraft, think of the Starship, where that has aft tanks. That's a twin engine, so she has aft tanks and then its main tanks. What happens is when you move the valve from your aft to your master or your main fuel tanks, you can't swap them back again. So you need to be careful. If you transfer the fuel valve from your aft tank to your main tank and there's still fuel remaining in the aft tank, you can't get in there ever again until the aircraft has to be shut down. It's a feature, seemingly, right? So, correct, Zith, great example. We're talking about gravity-fed fuel. Gravity, the weight is doing the job. And we use electronic fuel pumps. But what about inverted flight? Think about it. Aircraft is now upside down. It's lost its ability for gravity fed, right? Now, the electronic pumps will work to an extent. And an aircraft that this was really thought on was the Fuga Magister. The Fuga, a jet trainer from the 50s. I love flying the thing. It's in the sim from Azure Poly. That had its own additional fuel pump added to the airframe for just inverted flight. And the idea being is, if you invert the aircraft upside down doing aerobatics or whatever, you could stall the engine because the fuel pump was not strong enough to be pumping at that pressure. They put in an additional fuel pump, which could work for, I think it's a minute or 2 minutes. Like it's not indefinite, but that will maintain steady and predictable supply of fuel into the engine, without gravity being any sort of stuff. You know, Mrs. TBHI would know all about that. She would. She absolutely would. Tungsten. I miss working on Cessnas and Pipers. They're awesome, aren't they? But yeah, it's a great point with the Fuga. Then you look at, the older complex aircraft. Concorde, that thing, you need an engineer just to look after the fuel. multiple fuel tanks, and you have fuel tank balancing as part of the flight, right? Then you have something like the DC-6. Auxiliary fuel, main fuel, reserve fuel. It's all about managing the fuel and, okay, where's the fuel tanks located around the aircraft? This one, happily, well, the Cessna 172, it's very straightforward and it's a very safe system. Gravity-fed fuel tanks with a singular simultaneous fuel valve, so you can drain both tanks together equally, and it has its own electronic fuel pump. Very safe, right? We had an old Air Corps Magister in the training hangar, practice rigging and other jobs in it. Yeah. What number was it, Tungsten? Was it 220? I feel like a SWAT now, right? On the plane I work with, it's pretty much the same. Fuel can't go to wing when I transfer it. I need to do wing to center tank to wing. Yeah. Now, some aircraft, I'm trying to remember which one. Some of the Bonanzas do it. They'll actually feed directly off the tip tanks. So when the valve moves, there's a line that goes directly from the tank all the way to the engine, rather than tank to tank to tank and then engine. That makes sense? But anyway, we don't need to get bogged down in it. It's just an understanding of, that makes sense. Right. So the piston engine also drives the alternator that supplies electricity for the aircraft systems, which include its lights, avionics, and the flap motor. With the engine off, onboard batteries can power the aircraft for a limited time, and are also used to run the starter motor, which initiates combustion. Now, larger aircraft, jets and so on, they don't use necessarily an alternator. They use a generator, slightly different. The principle is somewhat the same though. You need a way to either recharge the battery, which primarily is going to be used to start the engine. That's the biggest power draw, right? But once the aircraft engine is working, it can then either power an alternator. Usually it's driven by a belt, an actual belt, right? Or it's plugged in using generators, and then generators with a bus take over all the electrics. Meanwhile, it'll divert some power back to the battery to make sure it's recharged, but the generators now become this interface that's looking after all your electrics. On the Cessna 172, there is no generator. We have an alternator, and an alternator could fail, and that's something we need to look at in the plane. An alternator could fail, right? Therefore, you've now lost the ability to recharge the battery. All right. So an alternator, again, just like your car, unless you're using electric, in your car you'll have an alternator coming off the engine. Big cog, belt, smaller cog. That's the alternator. It usually has like an aluminium housing with copper on the inside. That's part of the alternator motor, right? And that's what the alternator does. It's designed to alternate the current, recharge the battery, and then you're able to run all your electrics without draining the battery. All right. Then we have the ignition system. Ignition is provided by two rotating magnets called magnetos. Now, the reason why there's two of them, your car has a single standard electronic solenoid starter. Turn the key, shaft turns, spins the starter motor, engages the crankshaft, and the engine should fire because it's now created. You have power going to the spark plug or glow plug, and then you have fuel, and then into your four-stroke engine. Why we have two of these rotating magnets, it was built for redundancy. And the question being is, what if one failed? So that's why we have two magnetos, one on the left, one on the right. And we'll do this during our run-up. Our engine run-up, we can test the magneto to make sure it's working correctly. We'll know it's working correctly because when we turn off one of the mags, and we're only testing one, so if we go to the left mag, it disengages the right side magneto, we should see a small drop in our engine RPM because there's only one magneto now driving it, right? It's also important to note, if the transition, when you go from one mag to another mag, right, if that drop in the RPM is not smooth or predictable, if it's like boom, 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 that's a sure indication that the spark plugs on your aircraft, your spark plugs are there to create that spark, in which then you have the explosion and then the fuel, and then, right, all part of the four-stroke engine, right? Spark, fuel, flame. All right, ignition, fuel, ignition, fuel, explosion, exhaust, right? So your spark plugs, they can get what's called, you might have heard this term before, you might have heard, oh yeah, you're after fouling your plugs, or the engine has been fouled. What they mean by that is there was too much fuel. It's almost like you haven't flooded the engine, but you flooded the spark plug. And what happens, because everything's working and there's explosions and all this sort of jazz, there's now a heavy buildup of carbon. Heavy buildup of carbon is now sitting on the top of that spark plug, meaning that the spark is no longer as effective. And that's why you're getting the rough running. The way to fix that, you would reduce your mixture to increase more air, reduce the amount of fuel, and then increase the engine RPM. The engine will run faster. It will burn that carbon off quicker. Now, if you didn't have fouled plugs and you did that, you'll start damaging the engine. But if your job is just to burn off that bit of carbon or your fouled plugs, that's what they mean by that. So if anyone says, yeah, I need to do a run-up test because I'm checking me mags, it's the magnetos, these magnets that are rotating, right? One on each side of the engine. The only reason we have two, redundancy. If one fails, the other one is enough to get us home, right? The second bit is, if the transition of the RPM dropping when you only select one mag, if it's not smooth, if it's up and down, coughing, spluttering, that is a dead giveaway to say that you've an issue with a buildup of carbon on the plug. It could be other things, right? There could be electrical things. Again, that's what the engineers and the technicians look after. For us as pilots, we will hear it. We'll know it, right? I'm not sure it does the default 172 model it, but definitely Just Flight's aircraft, FS Reborns, and the Comanche does it as well, right? They simulate that buildup of carbon, right? So very interesting stuff. Roy says, so a magneto is the same as a distributor cap, pretty much. However, it's constantly moving. So your distributor cap is doing what one. It works in tandem with the cylinders. Do you know? Naughty Gnome, good to see you. Black Square do it as well, Naughty. Yes. Or Malky, yes. Naughty Gnome, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're well. But Malky, yeah, Black Square do that as well across all their fleet. Very, very good. And Black Square go one further. They actually have backfire put into it. Oh, Jesus, what was that? Right, you can backfire the engine with a Black Square aircraft. The only aircraft you can do it with. And they know why, because student pilots, we're devils for doing this. When you're, if it's a key for your mags, if you're turning the key, you want to go from, both to left to right. Sometimes a student will immediately turn them off and immediately turn them back on again. It's just, it happens. And that'll cause the engine to backfire. Sounds like a gunshot, right? But anyway, both create sparks inside the cylinders that ignite the fuel. That's our magnetos. Because the magnetos produce their own electricity and are engine driven, they are independent from the alternator and the battery. This ensures that the engine will continue to run if other electrical systems fail. So here's a picture to give you an idea. Here's our engine, right? Here's our blocks, here's our cylinders. 4-cylinder, right? And we're saying here, your mags. If you look at your radial engines, you'll see the mags in them as well. All right? So they're the magnetos. The Cessna 172 uses electronic instrumentation to display system status as well as flight instrumentation. Specifically, we're talking about the G1000. On the rightmost screen, called the Multifunction Display, or MFD, you can monitor your fuel flow, your oil pressure, your oil temperature, and your battery charging. This screen is also where we normally display the flight plan data and the moving map. So the screen over on the right hand side, right? This is where it's showing us all this kind of stuff. So we can see our fuel flow, we can see oil pressure and oil temperature. EGT is the exhaust gas temperature. That's important to keep an eye on because that you have a limit to what that'll do, and that's when you want to be configuring your fuel flow. Effectively, peak or lean mixture, right? Vacuum is part of the suction of the aircraft, as in the vacuum systems which create this suction, which are powering gyros and things like that. And then we have our, well, not necessarily powering gyros, but they're part of your instrumentation. Then we have fuel quantity, left and right tanks. And then we can see the electrical, right? So we can see bus, volts, battery, and amps. Very important. System indications over on the right side, they'll always show this kind of stuff in the Cessna. On the left side, the primary flight display, or PFD, well, we can see the flight instrumentation as well as an annunciator panel which alerts you to warnings and cautions. Now, an annunciator panel, think of ECAS, electronic something crew system, or CAS, crew alert system. It works the same. So you'll see things like low voltage, pitot off, pump on. It's an alerting system to tell you or to show you, hey, this is where it's at. And it works off the same. Red, problem. Yellow, cautionary. All right? Especially with the Cessna. To safely start up and operate the aircraft, Cessna publishes official checklists for each 172 model. And there are many models, lads. There's loads of Cessna 172s. T's, M's, R's, S's, there's tons of them, right? In Navigraph Academy, we use a realistic checklist adapted for the simulator environment. For example, items like fastening seatbelts are omitted, but otherwise, well, the checklist mirrors real-world procedures and is essential for proper aircraft operation. And we can get an idea here. And these are all available for free from Navigraph. Before your flight, make sure to download your copy of the Navigraph Academy checklist. It comes in two formats, a printer-friendly version and a professional, narrow, double-sided version for a more authentic experience. You'll find it under the Resources tab in the left-hand menu. Now, this is where you can really get fancy with your flight simming, because you could look at picking yourself up a real-world checklist. This one is from Transair. You pick these up for like $7 or $8, and these are designed the old way. These were designed like knee board kind of stuff, which is literally a board that sits on your knee, a knee board, right? And that would sit there. The idea being is when you're flying, you can glance down at your lap and your knee board will be there, usually strapped around your leg, and you say, that's what I'm doing next, right? When we have all our different checklists, for example, you would have your checklist alpha. This goes into the approach the aircraft, remove the tie downs, the pitot covers, chocks, external locks, etc. Check the aircraft and ground for fuel or oil spillages. Remove any snow or ice from the aircraft surface. Then you go into your cockpit checks, your undercarriage, the port wing. Next page. Front fuselage, starboard wing, starboard undercarriage, starboard fuselage. And it's saying things like, the front cowling condition, landing light is working, propeller and spinner, starboard cowling, engine oil check and replace the dipstick. So it's a checklist, right? And that's what all of these are, right? If you want to go deeper into it, right, I'll show you here. In the real world now, rather than using paper, but what you can use in here with the likes of like Garmin Pilot, and Say Intentions has this as well, which is brilliant. You can go into checklists, and here we have one for the Cessna 172. So if we were to look in at this and say, right, the first thing we're going to do, we're in the cabin, remove the control wheel lock. Next, the ignition switch is off, avionics power is off, the master switch is on, fuel quantity we're going to check, master switch is off, baggage door is going to check. Now we look at the empennage, that's the front of the airplane, or the rear of the airplane. The rudder gust lock, the tie down, disconnected, and the control surfaces are checked. Then we have the right wing trailing edge, check the aileron, tie down, main. So you get the idea, yeah? And this is a real world checklist from Cessna that's operated digitally. And this is pretty much where things are now, because if you forget something, I've intentionally left something, I can't go to the next page. However, if I hit the pitot cover, now I move to the next page. See how that works? It's an automatic, okay, you've done that. There's a green tick saying you've just done this checklist. Now, if we want, we can go back in, we can start it again, clear it, and we start again. We have our normal, abnormal, and emergency checklists in which we can follow there. This is all on your iPad. This is deadly stuff, right? And there are apps that you can get for your sim that do this. Say Intentions do their own, which is brilliant, or you can use some of the real world stuff. This, for flying in the sim, is a phenomenal way of really diving in to make sure that you're going to have a very accurate flight. And it's tons of fun, right? Tons of fun. Tungsten says 2 spark plugs per cylinder, 1 mag will provide a spark to 4 plugs, 1 per cylinder in case 1 mag shifts itself. Then you're still sparking each cylinder. I think the firing order was 1324. Sweet. Okay. So, checklists. Moving on, ground taxiing and charts. Well, once the engine is running and all your systems are in the green, it's time to taxi out to find the active runway. In this lesson, we're going to begin on the apron at St. Gallen in Switzerland. To reach the runway, we're going to need to identify the correct taxiway from our parking spot, which means we need to consult with the airport's ground chart. With a Navigraph chart subscription, you have access to detailed layouts of thousands of airports worldwide, all with accurate and true-to-life information. This makes it the perfect tool for finding your way, both on the ground and in the air. The advantages of using Navigraph: you get the AirAct data, which updates them. Gone are the days that you have to go monthly and like print off the charts, right? You have a moving map. They'll overlay your aircraft on the map. And they also have a way that you can, annotations. You can write on the charts as well, digitally. It is a fantastic solution. Yes, you can grab freeware charts. You can pick them up from the AIPs, but I recommend Navigraph. Hands down, it's brilliant. Vector-based charts, which are optimized for flight simulation, offering 3D representations of the airport environment, which is ideal for situational awareness in good weather operations. You can learn more about accessing Navigraph charts on the main website. Today's video briefing will also walk us through the features and benefits. So, lads, I highly, highly recommend Navigraph as a flight sim add-on. It's about 10 or 11 euros a month, but it is excellent, right? So if we want to find an airport, and they're saying Alterheim, isn't it? So St. Gallen, right? We're looking for the airport. St. Gallen. These are waypoints. I want the airport, and see the imagery that we have here. Here we go. St. Elmo, St. Ignatius. No. St. Gallen, St. Hubert. What is the ICAO for St. Gallen? St. Galmire, St. Pierre. It's down here somewhere. St. Mary's. Where is St. Gallen? Alterheim. Altern. H-E-I-N. Right, let's see if we can find it this way. LSZR. Man yourself. LSZR. There to be. Alterheim. So we're going to zoom in and have a look at what the charts will show us. And with Navigraph charts, you can change the map layout. We can go IF4 charts. We can go IF4 high or low. We can go VF4. We can go satellite world map. They've just added the VF4 charts for Europe, which is absolutely incredible. This alone has saved me probably €100 a year just by having these now. Because before I had to get onto the OS, the what's it called? The office of the OS, right? And you have to buy the charts from them. 25, 30 quid a go, and they're laminated. Now we have them digitally, right? Anyway. We'll keep it on world map for the minute so we can see the terrain around us. Now, when it comes to the airport itself, well, we can open the airport and have a look at the charts, right? And this is what you get with Navigraph. So if we were to look in here, so the airport diagram, and when it comes to interpreting charts, it takes a little bit of time to get used to these because you're like, what does this mean? You know, I mean, some things might jump out at you, other things, not so much. So we have the airport identifier up here in the top left. ICAO and IATA, is it IATA, is it? Airport elevation, and then we have its latitude, longitude. The ATIS, which is the weather information, that's the frequency in which we tune in to listen to ATIS. The identifier is St. Gallen, this is the frequency for ground, and then we have tower. And you'll see that there's 2 frequencies for the tower. Now, that's all up here, and it's Jeppesen, and then the date. 19th of July 2024 was the last update, and the chart number is 10-9. So that's how we identified the chart. Next up then was the radio frequencies. Then we have an overview, a top-down view of the airport itself with a couple of warnings. Caution, there's birds. Now, what they mean by that isn't like birds, Eddie and Richie. It's birds in the vicinity. So as a pilot, you need to be careful for that, particularly single engine operation, because a bird strike will shag the whole thing. It'll drop you out of the sky. Could do, right? So you need to be aware of that. There's also glider activity. Now, glider activity, why might that be important if we're flying in an area that has glider activity? What's the risk, if there's gliders operating? Think about it now. Not just from flying, but also from ground operations, from taxiing. Why might that be dodge if there's gliders, right? Also, high visibility jacket mandatory on the apron and all. That goes without saying. West and apron east. So high vis, most airports, you have to wear high vis, They can't get out of your way easily, correct? Right? So a glider, they're slow. They're not very maneuverable. They have a massive wingspan, so they're an awful lot wider than you think. But also, depending on how the glider is being launched, either towed or launched, it creates a hazard if it's a glider launch system. They tend to be pointed away from other traffic. Or if it's a tow system, you now have a steel cable running from a tow aircraft to the glider. It will be invisible, but if you hit it, it'd rip your plane in two. So gliders, you need to be careful with. Other airports might say, parachutes or parachutist activity, right? So you parachutists out running around. Other airports might say balloon activity. So you need to read the chart because it's going to give you relative information about the airport, all right? So we're looking at here, so it's basically a key, grass parking area west, the runway, so runway 10 and its actual heading, 097 degrees, they round it. Runway 28 is 277 degrees, so they're your two runways. You can see the elevation for your touchdown, right? The length of the runway, okay? And then we've other information here because we've these letters. Now these letters signify taxiways. Taxiways are not for taxi. Taxiways are the routes in which we can move our aircraft safely on the ground. We taxi the aircraft or a taxiway. So you can see November, Bravo, November, Mike, November. So this long taxiway line here, this looks like it's November. And November goes up to the base of runway 28 and it goes to the base of the apron west. That's November. Off November, you have Mike that's where the museum is. You also have Bravo Hotel. Is it hotel? Maybe not. Could be a helipad. You've November in front of all the hangars. The West Apron, then you can see where Charlie is. You've Alpha and you've Sierra. So these are the instructions. So if we were told by ATC, if we're down here, Cessna 172 at Bravo parking, right? Information Tango request taxi. They could say, right, taxi Bravo November, hold short runway 28. That's how you get a taxi route. So that's what they mean by that, right? Other things we can see, parking coordinates, your stands, what number they are, and the coordinates for them, right? Very handy when you're trying to get the INS or navigation system synchronized. This is where I should be, right? Great way to synchronize them. Then we have some information here. Max wingspan. So taxiway Bravo, they're telling you that the maximum wingspan is 12 meters. And that's important because you could be in a larger aircraft. You could indeed be in a glider. So that's important. Taxiway Mike, 24 meters to the hangar Whiskey 1. You can see where all these restrictions are. They're telling you how wide your aircraft can be. Other airports might go into the weight of your airplane. They might go into the noise abatement restrictions, as in don't rev the engine here. So your charts will have all that information. Here's a blow up of Apron West to show it in better views. So you can see where the AIS is, control tower. You can also see parking coordinates. Right, Dave Cleary, good to see you, buddy. And then we have this additional runway information. So the runway, right, the different runways. We're getting information from the touchdown zone. Are there PAPI lights here? Yes. The angle is a 4-degree PAPI, right? The threshold, landing beyond threshold, and then a glide slope, takeoff, and then the width of the runway. Then we have numbers down here giving us information. So there's a 1 beside the runways. It's a grooved runway. All right. Number 2 is down for 4 degrees decline or 4-degree slope for your arrival. Number 3, single engine aircraft of different heights, right? Noise abatement, reverse thrust. For deceleration, it is recommended to use entire runway length available. Reverse thrust shall be used for safety or operational reasons only. So they don't want everyone tipping down there to hit the handbrake and blast everyone when it comes to reverses. You know what I mean? Murph, next to the left of 4774, there's a triangle shaped symbol. 4774? Where'd you see it? There's a triangle. This. That's the windsock. What's that guy again? That is it the beacon light? This one here, Roy, is it? Hang on. I think it's a beacon light. I could be wrong. Sky Vector. Sky Vector, yes, in there. I'll double check it. I could be wrong though. Let's see. We'll get it over this neck of the woods here, hey. We'll go into where's my key? We can do it in here somewhere, look. How did I do that before? En route, zoom in. Right. DC area. Usually we get a key. That's IF4. TAC. Dee. Okay, stand by. We'll do with these. We'll do these. Where are you? We're learning together. I think it's beacon. I could be wrong. Now. Right. These triangles are always located next to runways, big airports like Schiphol. So that's a weather sock. This one I'm unsure. I think it's a beacon. I could be wrong. Like what are you likely to have at the side of the runway? Right? Weather station maybe? Perhaps? Launch area for a glider maybe? I'm not sure. Displaced threshold. Displaced threshold? So is that what it showed us? Displaced threshold? I don't think so. Triangle shape on airport chart here. Runway. I should really know this. Hang on there now. Bum, 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 bum. All right, Texas A&M. Because you usually get actual triangles. It's a good one, lads, isn't it? Is it where they keep Toblerones? I don't know. It's a good one, isn't it? I need to figure out what this is. Airport diagram legend. Right, this from the FAA. Where are you? Is it a European thing? Do you guys have that in America? Displays threshold. So that's what it's pointing at, right? Helicopter stuff. I think it's the space. The thick black lines on the runway are the threshold. This one here, Jeb. This guy. RVR transmissions. Is it? Page word mentioned. Yeah, no, this is the one where I'm kind of stuck with. I'm not sure. I think it's the space threshold. I think. Or maybe it's a beacon. I couldn't tell you. Briggsy thinks it's an obstacle. No, it's not an obstacle. I'll tell you that. If it was an obstacle, it'll be all over the shop. Aerodrome chart. Is it in here? No. Say. Viper says he knows. Take a look on Google Maps. RVR measuring system. Ah. So it's equipment that's on the ground. Okay, that makes sense. Maps. So we're going to go St. Gallen. Let's have a look. There's our weather sock, and there's this guy. You see from the road. Who put the trees in the way? Right, so that's what we're looking at, so it's a transmitter. Here we go. That's pretty cool. So our weather sock is here as per the charts. There's the poppy lights, right? And usually you'd see other things. That's a grass runway. You'd see other things like a VOR station or antennas or any of that jazz. So in this case, then, yeah. That's a good one now. Interesting. It bounces light between a set distance that measures the weather. Yeah. I don't know. Why? What? Like, it is pointing to it because it's beside the it's beside it, right? Would it not have said what it is? I've never seen that before. AI says its declared distance marker says the usable runway length is different. Well, no, well, usable runway is this, is the number beside it. That's the usable runway, right? Yeah, I don't know. RVR, like runway visual range is what that is. They're all over the place. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Probably a Euro thing. Check out KSFO airport. Triangles are not shown. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? That's a good one. Okay, so we're learning something here. The RVR stuff would show you like a touchdown zone. I would have thought that's the RVR, or that's elevation at your touchdown zone. You know what I mean? I'll need to do more research into that. Never seen that one before. And we're all equally kind of half the shagged. I'm 90% sure they're at Dublin too. They look like big cameras with shrouds, so you can see them recording football matches with. Yeah. No, that's a good one. No, VOR would look different. Like the H's, anywhere you see a H, that's helicopter stuff, right? Either touchdown or maneuvering area, right? Your approach lights, the sequence they flash. You probably have the same at the far end. No, so you have approach lights here over the lake, right? Yeah, I'm surprised we don't have a name for it. A thingamabob, you know. Further on, then, that's the noise abatement, taxiing, and meteo condition. If weather condition permits, expect runway 10 for landing and runway 28 for departure. All right. And then standard takeoff, daytime, nighttime, and then adequate if day. All right. So at the airport, it's pointing to this little dude down here. I don't see any other references there. Radar minimums, no. SIDS, taxi, approach, star. So the aerodrome chart doesn't have it. It's just showing you where the weather sock is. But this one is different because we have this guy. I've never seen it before. Pretty cool. That's a typical check ride question, by the way, says Viper. From a European standpoint or international, Viper? Because on the FAA stuff, I can't find it. Do you know? Anyway, we won't get bogged down. We'll move on. But there you go, something new. I'm still not entirely certain what it is. Military. Yeah, but sure, like, do you know what I mean? Sorry for digressing the lesson. No, not at all. It's figuring out what it is. Look, lads, if you see something you don't understand what it is, shout. As I said, if I know what it is, I'll tell you. If I don't know what it is, I'll try and find the answer. It's kind of mad. There has to be another way I can do this. Hang on now. Let's see. Aviation charts. The symbol represents a runway slope or gradient indicator. Interesting. The dot at the top marks the height of the elevation. The curved base marks the lower. Triangle with a curve is a runway slope. That doesn't make sense though, does it? Transmissionometer with or without designator. Yeah. We've learned something new, lads. Great stuff. Right, anyway, so charts. Getting back to it. Our charts and why they're important. As I said, like, these are very much aimed... This chart is actually pretty much taken from real world. Navigraph usually go through these Jeppesen charts and they take out some stuff that isn't relevant. They didn't do it with this because usually you wouldn't see high visibility jackets or any of that jazz. And again, this one, I've never seen it. So I'm interested to know exactly what it is. For Batum, what is it? Do you know? But the information that you get on the charts, they paint a very good picture. Now, there's other sources that you can grab, especially for VF4. There's other sources you can grab to get this kind of information. But your charts, if you read the charts, you've read the charts. You know, especially with ATC, they'll be like, well, did you read your charts? Yeah, I did. You know, Viper, that'd be awesome, dude. Yeah, if you could, mate, that'd be awesome, 100%. Because as I said, I haven't come across that before. And well, sure, we're here to learn. Check the bar. I've put it in from Jeppesen. Yeah. I think Stu has found it. And good man, Stu. RVR measuring site. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Bingo. We don't need to worry about it. We just need to know that it's there. It's not going to have any impact on how we're flying today, right? So it's a class of obstacle, maybe. I don't know. But that's what it is. So it's an RVR measuring site. RVR is runway visual range, unless I'm wrong on that as well. But that's what I think it is. Yeah. What was the source on that, Stu? That's from Jeppesen, is it? Nice. Okay. Excellent. Not sure if it's correct, but I'll check out. 1 second now. We have another one. So it's a transmissionometer with or without a designator. Unless you have a large wingspan, they place these near in line with the runway to measure the RVR. Aha. Right. Okay. Sweet. Lads, thank you for the clarification there. It's before 1 o'clock and I've learned something new. This is great crack. Right, brilliant. So, charts. They can do far more. As I said, with Navigraph, you can show things like the weather, You can show things, telemetry from your aircraft when you're flying along. You get the idea, right? Very, very powerful bit of kit. So where we're going to in this lesson, it is looking at that, right? It is looking at that. So let's have a look at this. We're now going to cover what we're talking about on today's video. So when you're ready, we're going to play this, pop it over on the tube, and let's get a full rundown of today's lesson. So when you're ready, let's start.
Congratulations, aviator. You've successfully soloed and now can fly a Cessna 172. But your journey has only begun, and we can look beyond the confines of the traffic pattern and head out to explore the world. But first, a final challenge awaits. Let's get to know our trustworthy Cessna and how to get it started. Get it ready for flight and off the tarmac. Today's mission is ground operations.
Welcome back to Navigraph Academy and phase 2 of your virtual PPL. In this phase, we will be taking the airplane out on adventures, exploring amazing places. We'll use the coming lessons to fly in the northern part of the Alps, heading both around the stunning Lake Bodensee, into the amazing Austrian mountains, and even to the famous airport of Innsbruck. We will also get a chance to explore the major city of Zurich in Switzerland. This lesson is divided into 2 parts, where we will first discuss how to find our way around the airport on the ground by using taxiway charts. This will allow us to go from the parking area, the apron, and all the way to the runway. In the second and longer part of the video, we'll cover the ground procedures of the Cessna. And you'll learn quite a bit about the Cessna 172's technical systems and the checklists. At the end of this video, you will be able to start up, perform ground checks, and taxi the Cessna both to takeoff and back to parking in a correct manner. We'll begin by exploring the ground chart for our departure airdrome. We are still operating out of the beautiful St. Gallen Altenrhein Airport in northern Switzerland. In order to find the proper routes to and from our parking position, we need to refer to some sort of ground chart. If you have a Navigraph subscription, you can access Navigraph Charts, which is our comprehensive chart and flight planning solution. In this phase of the virtual PPL, we'll use Navigraph Charts to find our way around the Alps. Here we are in Navigraph Charts. I am using the web version here, which you can access in any browser, but an app is also available on tablets and on mobile devices. Let us first find our airport at St. Gallen. Go to Flights, hit New Flight, which is up here, and pick an origin airport. We'll search for St. Gallen. There it is. Let's click Add to Route.
Casey found that a lot easier than I did, didn't he? Jesus.
We can now see that the airport is marked on the map. Before we zoom in and look at the airport in detail, let's make sure we're using the visual navigation chart. This enables us to see the terrain types and the visual flying rule procedures on the map, which is what we're going to be using in this phase. Click on the Map Preset Selector button and find VFR in the list. There we go, the map looks a lot nicer this way. Let us now zoom in on St. Gallen. At this zoom level, we can see that the Alpine mountain range is stretching out just south of the airport. The yellow area over here is the city of Zurich. Just south of the Alps, we can see Milan in Italy. And over here in the east, we find Munich.
Now, here's something that tends to trip people up sometimes when they look at the charts, right? The yellow bit. Do you ever see those yellow bits before? Just to explain what they actually mean, right? So if we go to VFR here, what the yellow bits actually mean, people think, look, that's the city. But if you look at the shape of it, well, it doesn't always add up that way. It doesn't always look like, well, hang on, that's the city, really, right? What that is showing you on your charts, on your VFR map specifically, it's a layout of the lighting of that built up area. Okay, so if you're to look at somewhere, maybe, you know, the shape of, let's say, Manchester, right? Where it is close enough to it, but it's not exact. It's like, no, there's the built-up area of Manchester goes more than that, or Dublin, for example, right? Or if you look at some of the built-up areas, you know, it could be Portlaoise, for example. Basically, what they're showing it, that's how you would identify that area at night time as well. That's the shape of nighttime on these charts. Yeah, so that's what that means when you're looking at it. Just thought I'd add that in. You know?
Quite a cool place to be flying in, right? And we are about to do just that. But the map is still looking quite cluttered. We're seeing a lot of unnecessary points. So let us modify it a bit more before we dive in. Click on the Map Layers selector button up here. You'll get a list of all the major categories of points, but we can deselect the navigation map layers and the airspace map layer for now. This removes the GPS points and the radio beacons. We don't need these to fly visually, and as you can see, the chart gets a lot clearer. Let's zoom in now. As we zoom in, we can now see the airport itself. And do you recognize the area? Well, you should. We've been flying here in our previous lesson. First, we can see the traffic pattern that we've been following. Also, here are the island juts that Jason instructed us to maintain just outside while flying the downwind. As we zoom in further, we can see the airport itself, with the hangars, the aprons, the taxiways, and the runways. In Navigraph charts, all data is taken from real data sources, and this is the actual layout of the airport as it looks in real life, as well as it is in the simulator. Here we find the information we need to navigate on the ground. In this lesson, we will be starting on apron Bravo. It is located over here. Once started up and ready for taxi, we will proceed to runway 10 for takeoff. And to do that, we need to exit apron Bravo and take a right onto taxiway November. The taxiway name is indicated by the letter N here. As we continue to taxi, we'll soon take a left onto Alpha. We may opt to do a short backtrack to reach the full-length position for runway 10. In real life, air traffic control would provide a radio instruction with our taxi route, stating these exact taxiways in the clearance to taxi.
492 Delta Papa, exact ground runway 7 Alpha 7, taxi via Echo Alpha, cross runway 13 Alpha.
But when the tower is closed, or like in the simulator today, where there is no air traffic control service, we can simply pick the best route on our own and taxi at our discretion. Alright, it's time to get into the aircraft. Let's head over to Jason, who is already sitting down there at apron Bravo.
Hey folks, and welcome back to the Cessna 172. In our previous lessons, we've been fully focused on learning to fly this beauty. But now, let's dive into the systems and the checklists required to master the aircraft. We've parked here on apron Bravo. The aircraft is unpowered and fully shut down. This is often referred to as the cold and dark situation. Before we fire it up, let's quickly look over our cockpit layout.
So, question coming in there from Briggsy. Confused. Surely you need to learn this before you do your first solo and before you get your license. Yes and no, right? Before your first solo, yes, right? Because you will be taxiing. They'll also include ATC with that as well. But your first couple of discovery flights, your instructor does all of this for you. So you actually pick it up a lot sooner in your training. The first thing, from my perspective, the first thing we start on is pre-flight. You go through the pre-flight. That's where you spend your time walking around the aircraft, checking on all the critical components, following the checklist. Then you're inside the aircraft. We go through proper startup. What happens if things don't go according to plan, with a list of either immediate actions or fail-safes. And on the ground, in the classroom, that's where you would delve more into airport operations, ground operations. That's mainly done on the theory level, because don't forget, when you're sitting in the plane, that's expensive, right? You're paying for the plane, you're renting the aircraft, insurance, fuel, the instructor, and so on. Your ground school will cover a lot of this. Airports are, they differ, but they're very similar in terms of the rule sets. Unless the chart specifically tells you otherwise, or the airport information tells you otherwise, it's relatively straightforward to kind of follow this along, you know. Strap is here. Good morning. Papa Justify, good to see you. Mrs. TPHI, we're only talking about you earlier on about being upside down with fuel tanks, you know. But yeah, so in the real world, if you do a discovery flight, your instructor is there. They're going to give you just a chat about the aircraft, what they're doing. They will pre-flight the aircraft for you, unless it's like a busy day and they're just taking people up for a spin, right? They'll talk to you about the pre-flight. The main elements they're going to be checking are things like the wings, the linkages. If the aircraft is cold and dark, as in it hasn't flown at all that day, that's a fairly detailed check that they do on the aircraft before they start flying. If the aircraft has been flying up and down all day, they do a relatively quick kind of check around the machine itself. They're going to be checking linkages, as I said, any dirt or damage, and they're going to be checking main components such as your landing gear, the tires, the propeller integrity itself. Is there any chips or any hollow sounds? That kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? John C., good morning. Hope you're well, man. So, yeah, at this stage, this is primarily, right, how do we launch into a flight, do a walk around, get the aircraft up and running, and then what do we do then after that? In the sim, because there's no ATC active, well, there's no consequence. We can pretty much do what we like. In an ideal world, though, you would be making what's called pilot reports. You'd be calling out and advising the local traffic, if there's no ATC, what you're doing. You know, you jump on the radio to say, you know, I'm a Cessna at Bravo, going to be taxiing November, holding short runway 10. And you would always identify the station at the start and at the end of each transmission. So in this case, a radio transmission would sound something like St. Gallen, Cessna 172 at Bravo. We're going to taxi November, hold short of runway 10, St. Gallen. The reason why you put the identifier at the start and at the end, well, other traffic in the area, they might only turn onto that frequency and you're halfway through your sentence. So by listening in, they'll say St. Gallen. Oh, wait, I'm going to St. Gallen. And then they can say, hey, can you say that again? Right? If you didn't give, you know, the identifier, you could have 3 or 4 people in the same area, right? But at different airports. You know what I mean? Good video. Good to see you, buddy. Hermit something, good morning. Hope everyone's keeping well. Right, we continue on. If you have any questions, just shout. We'll pick them up in the chat.
On the left side, we find most of the electrical controls. Up here with the red switches, we will control the battery and generator together. These 2 buttons are called the master switch. To the right of that, we find 2 white switches. These control power for the 2 avionics computers driving the left and right electronic instrumentation screens. Just underneath, we can control all the internal and external lighting. Going further down, we find the circuit breakers. Unless we have a problem, all of these tend to stay in and untouched. To the left of the circuit breakers, we find the starting key. Let's talk a little bit about what this does. With the key, we can control the starter motor, which helps us get the engine cranking. Inside the engine, we find the starter assembly. It is mounted just below the propeller hub, right here. As we rotate the key all the way to the right, the smaller cogwheel is pushed into contact with its larger cogwheel, which is attached to the engine crankshaft. This makes the propeller rotate and initiates the combustion cycle. The key is called the magneto switch, as it also controls the 2 large magnets housed inside these black cylinders, mounted to the back of the engine block. The key has a right, left, and a both position. This controls which magnetos are active. They produce a strong electrical current. This electricity is led to the spark plugs inside the cylinders. This ignites the fuel and air mixture, leading to the start of the combustion cycle. When the engine is running, we release the key back to both position and the starter motor disengages. The magnetos now continue to provide ignition current for as long as the engine rotates under its own power. Going back to the cockpit and looking further to the right, we find the throttle and mixture control levers. I'll explain the mixture control in more detail soon.
Now, just on that, I don't know why my internet is slow, because it seems to be loading. Do you know what I did do? I did something. Let's see here. We'll do some settings because I don't like the way that's buffering. Uno momento. So Thing Wizard was like, I recommend having your first Cessna ride in minimal weather conditions, hungover, almost still drunk, and not closing the door properly. Right? Paul, good to see you, buddy. Have to take Jacob's cat to his kitty. Ooh. Best of luck with that. Right, network and internet. Hang on now. I need to do a bit of work with this. Internet, can I look at me owl settings here now? Advanced network settings. Jesus. How do I do this? I want to change the adapter settings. Because I have a feeling all is not well in the world. View adapters. So the 10, yes. View additional properties. Back one. Advanced. Power. Right, adapter settings. Stand by. And I'll fix this. How do we do this now? Properties. Configure. Advanced events. Advanced. So this is down to interrupt moderation, adapted, interrupt on. Let's okay that. Disconnect and then reconnect. We hope. Right. Navigraph video. Let's restart you. We're at A56. You know. We'll go directly to YouTube for this. There she be
To
now.
the right of that is the flap lever that we have already talked about extensively.
Right, we'll just go back a smidgen here just to make sure it's all working well. And we'll see what the story is. There
It's
she
mounted
goes.
just below the propeller hub, right here. As we rotate the key all the way to the right, the smaller cogwheel is pushed into contact with its larger cogwheel, which is attached to the engine crankshaft. This makes the propeller rotate and initiates the combustion cycle. The key is called the magneto switch, as it also controls the two large magnets housed inside these black cylinders, mounted to the back of the engine block. The key has a right, left, and a both position. This controls which magnetos are active. They produce a strong electrical current. This electricity is led to the spark plugs inside the cylinders. This ignites the fuel and air mixture, leading to the start of the combustion cycle. When the engine is running, we release the key back to both position and the starter motor disengages. The magnetos now continue to provide ignition current for as long as the engine rotates under its own power. Going back to the cockpit and looking further to the right, we find the throttle and mixture control levers. I'll explain the mixture control in more detail soon. To the right of that is the flap lever that we have already talked about extensively in Phase 1. To the right of the flap lever is the cabin air conditioning controls. This is one of the few things we can't properly simulate in a flight sim just yet, unless you're looking to build your own integrated air conditioning system at your home desktop. That would be pretty cool. Finally, we have the pedestal. This is the area underneath the throttles, reaching down to the floor. Here we can see the trim wheel, which controls the trim tab on the elevator. The little red knob down here is the shutoff valve for the fuel line to the engine. At the bottom, sitting on the floor, we have a fuel selector. Since the Cessna has one fuel tank in each wing, this knob allows us to draw fuel from either the left or the right, or from both tanks. There's also a bunch of control knobs around the screens. We do not really care much about those right now, as they mostly are going to be related to the navigation modes that we have. I'll cover the necessary ones as we proceed with our training. All right, that's enough of the overview. Let's get her started. At Navigraph Academy, we make use of our own checklist. Our checklist is based on the real-life Cessna 172 operating handbook. If you opt to use the in-game checklist, be aware that there are differences between flight simulators, such as MSFS 2020 and MSFS 24, and the real-life Cessna 172 procedures that we use. We have also removed some items that are not relevant for the simulator. One example is the item asking the pilot to make sure the seatbelts are on and latched. The Academy checklist is available at the Academy website, and it's of course totally free. Let's begin with the cockpit setup checklist. Brakes should be checked first. You can either do this by pressing the manual brakes, for example, by feet if you have a pair of rudder pedals, or by engaging the parking brake. You'll find the parking brake lever just underneath the yoke, right here. On the real Cessna, you'd have to depress the brake pedals first, then extend the parking brake lever. In the sim, you can simply just press the parking brake to engage the brakes. All right, brakes are set. Next, let's check that all the circuit breakers are in and none have popped out. All the electrical equipment should be off. Check that all switches are pointing downwards and that the cabin lighting knobs are all pointing at the 9 o'clock position. Then, check that the white avionics buttons are down and off. If these were accidentally left on, there could be an electrical spike at the battery connection, which could damage the equipment. The fuel selector should be set to both. This allows the engine to get fuel from both fuel tanks. There we go. The fuel shutoff valve should be pressed in, meaning that fuel is free to flow to the engines.
Now, just on this, I'm also overlaying real-world checklists here. I'm following this along, so you can see what Navigraph are showing us. They are so close to the real world. It's pretty cool, right? Wild Nature, good to see you. Gelati is here. Welcome in. So the pre-flight seatbelts, fuel selector valve, avionics, your brakes and circuit breakers, they're all checked items here now on a real world checklist. And then when we go into the start of the engine, that's where we check your mixture, carb heat if you have one, master switch, prime, throttle, prop area, clear, ignition switch and so on. So I'm following this along as I'm watching what the guys in Navigraph are doing. But they're very, very close together. It's awesome.
Great, the cockpit is set up. Let's move to the before start checklist. Before engine start, throttle should be open 1/4 of an inch, which is about 1/5 of the travel distance of the throttle control knob. This opens the fuel line somewhat to allow fuel to enter the engine at the engine start. The mixture control goes to the idle cutout. This is the fully aft position. The mixture control knob controls the air to fuel mixture rate. Fully aft is cut off, meaning no fuel and full air.
Now, just on that, great question by Adam. Good morning, Adam. Hope you're well. Any reason that you'd select one single fuel tank over both? There's a couple of reasons for it. Anything from checking to make sure that the fuel lines are working. It's another way to balance the aircraft, right? So let's say, for example, especially out of flight school, right? Let's say, for example, the pilot flying or the student is considerably heavier or considerably lighter than the instructor, or maybe there's an extra passenger thrown in there as well. Well, in order to get the balance of the aircraft, they're not going to change the fuel sitting on the ground. Highly unlikely. So what they might do is, okay, well, look, we're going to move the balance of the aircraft. It all comes down to the center of gravity, where that weight and balance is. You want it at its most center position, right? So you could opt to use a single fuel tank. Now, on aircraft that don't feed from both, because it's safer to feed from both fuel tanks, just in case there was a blockage or whatever, right? Contaminated fuel. If you're using both, well, you've twice as many options, right? But usually on critical movements of flight, takeoff, climb, and landing, right? You would always go to the fullest tank. Just there's more fuel there. You're not worried about selecting, low fuel quantities. You know what I mean? For me, if when we were changing the fuel tank, it was done primarily to make sure, it's working, and two, it is a way to rebalance the aircraft, But yeah, 100%. Rob, good to see you. What is the app on the iPad? It's Garmin Pilot, which is a real world EFB, but you can work it in Flight Sim. It's kind of overkill if you're just doing Flight Sim with it. But I like comparing kind of the real world stuff to what we have at Navigraph, and it's sometimes you can't really tell the difference. Other times you can, depending on the features of them, But yeah, I mean, they're pretty much your options. It's the weight and balance of the aircraft. Don't forget, if you have your heavy or light passenger in and now you're flying, that's something that you will have to compensate. Our Cessna 172 does not have an electronic rudder tab or aileron trim, right? So what happens is we would then have to manually adjust our flight controls to counteract that. If you knew at the start of the flight, well, they'll go back to the rudder tab at the back of the aircraft and they can physically with their hands move it ever so slightly, right? But they're not really they're going to have a rough guess. So you can burn a bit of fuel out of one tank to balance everything off. That's primarily it.
This allows the engine to get maximum air intake at the crank. We'll push this forward as soon as we feel the engine igniting. Here's the standby battery. This is an extra battery fitted to the Cessnas that use the Garmin G1000 avionics. That allows for redundancy in case of a primary battery failure. The standby battery is normally in the armed mode, meaning it will kick in if all other electrical supply is lost. First, we'll run a quick check. It's so simple. Just push the knob to test the position and hold it in place. We monitor the light for 10 seconds. If the light stays on, the current is healthy. We flip it to the arm position now. The standby battery now feeds electricity to the system. We could see the primary flight display called the PFD light up. We verify that the screen boots up normally. Then we check there's no crossed out marks on the instruments. If there were, we'd have a faulty sensor. To check the quality of the standby battery, we also check the voltage of the E-bus and the M-bus. I'll explain this part in a bit more detail. The E-bus is the essential electrical bus to which all the important electrical consumers are connected. For example, the left display. The M-bus is the main electrical bus, where the rest of the equipment is connected. As you can see, less important functions, such as overhead lights and the taxi light, are installed here. Having equipment split in two like this allows the system to shed not as important things if we get into low power situation. The standby battery only powers the essential bus, ensuring maximum battery time for that vital stuff. For now, we check that the E-bus voltage is 24 volts minimum. This indicates a good standby battery. We check that the M-bus voltage is not above 1.5 volts. This means that the standby battery is not feeding any current into the main bus, as is desired. We also check that the amps of the standby battery are negative, meaning it's being used and providing current to the E-bus. Next check is the warning system. The annunciators are shown on the PFD right here. Right now, we can see the standby battery annunciator. That's good. That means the warning system is working. We switch the beacon light to the on position. This warns people we're about to start the engine. The next item to check is that the propeller area is clear. In real life, sometimes a clear prop is called to make sure you alert bystanders that the prop is going to start spinning.
Clear prop.
This is simply a precautionary here, as the next item on the checklist could invoke the propeller to spin without us ever touching the starter key. We'll explain this. As we switch on the master switch, the main battery begins to feed electricity into the system, including the starter motor circuit. If we have a loose wire somewhere, the engine starter motor could engage even when the key is not in the start position. This time there was no accidental start. That's good for us. Let's keep going. Our engine is cold today since it was not run recently. We need to prime it. Priming means pushing some fuel into those cylinders to allow a good start sequence. We do this with the electrical fuel pump. It's controlled by this switch. Let's put it on. You can hear the pump start. We push the mixture fully in and wait for about 4 seconds. Then we'll pull the mixture goes back to idle cutoff. Finally, we switch off the fuel pump again. This procedure has now pushed some fuel into the engine. A side note here, it could be a good idea to bind the mixture control to a specific access, such as a slider on your throttle device or a separate control slider on your joystick setup. This makes it much easier to control the mixture properly. Okay, it's time to start. Grab the key and move it to the start position. The engine and propeller begin to crank. Once we feel the ignition catching, let go of the key and simultaneously push the mixture control full range. Great stuff, we're in business. Let's put the RPM about 1,000 RPM for now. It's important to check the oil pressure quickly. The engine is cooled and lubricated by engine oil.
Now, we'll pull up the handbrake for a moment. So, there are slight changes from what I did versus what the guys are showing us here, right? So, in my case, mixture rich first, open the throttle about 1/4 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch, then you go to start it, right? That's what I've been shown how to do. I have seen that you'd start with the mixture out and then push it in once you have a crank on the engine, right? But cracking the throttle, as they call it, that's important. It just means that the engine has a better chance of starting because the revolutions will be higher when it starts. Not too high because you'll damage it if it's cold, but not having the throttle idle, you want to be pushed in about an 1/8 of an inch, roughly, which is about that much. It's only a little bit just to have the flow running there. Another way, you can also prime the engine. A way of priming the engine, but you got to be careful you don't flood it. If you were to open the throttle with the mixture on and the fuel pump, that will increase the fuel flow going into the engine. Now, knowing that the engine isn't actually turning, you can now very quickly flood the engine, right? A flooded engine, you just got to wait. There's ways in which you can burn it out, but your battery is going to suffer from it. You'll be turning the crank with the mixture fully out, let it burn it off, and then you go mixture in and it will continue on, right? So what they're showing us here is correct, but your throttle would be pushed in slightly, about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, an 1/8 of an inch, right? And in my case, it was always mixture rich, then start. I don't know if that's going to be different for you, or maybe you have done different. I'll double check this checks. So start up. This will even say mixture rich. Let me see. Start, look out. Mags. That's okay. Where is this now? So before start. Maybe. Primer, prime as required. So it says here, mixture, full and free movement, set to rich. Check your throttle friction. Full and free movement of your throttle, set it to 1/4 inch open. And then you give it a blast. You know, Duck says, I wonder how many accidents happen from them to call out clear prop that early. Usually at populated areas. And again, I mean, you could have your mags turned, or not your mags, sorry, you could have your mixture turned off. But it has happened, turning on the battery, it could fire, the prop could spin, right? So by saying clear prop, don't forget, sitting in a Cessna, kind of basic common sense, right? Sitting in a Cessna, you have so many blind spots. You cannot see below the dashboard. That means you cannot see anything lower than your chin, usually, or even your nose outside of the airplane. You just can't see it. You're looking at the top of the cowling. You can maybe look out to your side. You can see a little bit of the other side. But if there was someone small, like a child, or if there was someone working on the ground, you won't see them. So yes, the beacon light, but that's not an audible alert, right? They'll see it. Your man's lights are on. No, stay back. He's doing a thing. So that's what they still say, clear prop, right? When you look at airliners, for example, well, it's done by communication. You're clear to start your engines, or ATC. Yes, I want to start my engine, right? And that's why they do it. So yeah, it's mad, right? You'd wonder. We better start saying clear prop before we start firing this thing up, you know, just in case. But yeah, that's what they do.
An engine-driven pump moves oil around the engine. If the pump is broken, we'd see no pressure at all. If we get no pressure within about 30 seconds, we should switch the engine to off to avoid the damage. Easy peasy today. We got the green line indication straight away. Once the engine starts spinning, a generator coupled to the engine starts to generate electricity. This alternating current generator, or alternator, takes over the electrical supply role from the batteries now. As long as the engine spins, we'll have all the power we need. We check that the alternator is working by making sure there is no negative current shown on the amp meter. A positive figure here indicates that the alternator is charging the batteries. The absence of a low volts annunciator shows that we have good electrical flow from the alternator. Finally, we switch on the avionics switches. This powers up all the remaining equipment, driving the 2 electronic flight instrumentation displays.
Now, just on that as well, if you're idling the aircraft, depends on the aircraft, right? In the sim, sometimes it does it. Aircraft in the sim do it. In the real world, this happens all the time, especially on older aircraft. If you keep your throttle to like full idle, right? the engine RPM is running relatively low. Depending on the temperature of the aircraft, it has to run a little bit harder or faster in order to maintain. Otherwise, it could cut out on you. Usually with a Cessna, if you drop the volts below 800 or drop the RPM below 800, especially early on, you will get a low voltage warning because, well, the generator or the alternator, the spin just isn't fast enough for it to be able to do what it needs to do, especially if the battery's on the way out or the aircraft is old. So you'll actually get that in the real world. You'll actually get low volts because your throttle is low. Increase the RPM, that takes care of it. If you listen to your car, engines are the same, right? In your car, you have an automatic choke, right? Older cars, you have a manual choke. And what that is doing, it's affecting at what idle speed you can idle at automatically, right? So with an aircraft, usually when you start up this kind of stuff or piston power, you would let them idle just under 1,000 RPM, which means you actually have applied a bit of throttle here. So that's usually the sweet spot. When you start the aircraft, you would allow it to warm up by keeping the RPM just under 1,000, maybe 1,000. Roughly, that's where it is. If you keep it at a full idle, just like your car, it'll shake an awful lot more. The electrics aren't getting their full charge. So just to be aware of it. The default 172, I don't think looks at that. It's not simulated in it for the low voltage. But some aircraft, definitely. You could be sitting there going, why have I low voltage? Sure, it's the engine's running. You have a small increase to the RPM, ideally just below 1,000. And also while you're doing that, you want to then start reducing the mixture if you're sitting on the ground. Remember, mixture full fuel, very little air mix. As you pull out that mixture, it's allowing more air in there with less fuel. That means you are going to reduce the risk of fouling the plugs, i.e. unburnt fuel turned to carbon. Right. I press buttons I shouldn't have.
Now the multi-function display, or MFD, also kicks alive. We make sure to kick the small soft key on the MFD to accept the welcome message, and the screen booted up. Nice, all set. We're ready for taxi. The engine is now on, we have instruments, and we're eager to get going. Let's prepare to taxi. Before we do anything else, we should rehearse the taxi route. Again, we are up here at the apron Bravo. As we taxi southbound, we'll see the long taxiway November. We'll take a right and taxi all the way to the end. Just before reaching apron west, we'll turn left. We'll then stop at the holding point before runway 10. Okay, we've briefed the taxi route. Let's get going. First, we make sure that the taxi light is on. This gives good lighting in darkness, but also alerts other people who are planning to start moving. We can also switch on the nav lights if we so desire. Before we commence movement, we check both left and right to make sure we're not going to hit anything. I'll release the parking brake and give the engine a bit more power. We start moving. As we begin the taxi, we check that the brakes work by giving them a small squeeze. Yeah, the plane's slowing down. That's good operations. Here's the taxiway. Right turn here. Such a beautiful day to go flying. Look at those beautiful clouds up there.
Now, here's another tip if you want to show off to your flight simulation enthusiast friends, right? Real world, when you test the brakes, if you have differential braking, especially if you're going to start carrying passengers later on in life, or, you're flying airliners, right? With differential braking, the last thing you want to do is create an uncomfortable experience for your passengers, right? Now, this isn't by the book, but this is what goes on, right? So rather than jumping on the brake pedals or giving them a little squeeze, what some pilots do, they'll do a small left toe brake and the aircraft will start kind of going that way. Then they'll do a small right brake, foot brake press, and the aircraft will go back onto the center line. That's another way of testing that your brakes are indeed functioning. But not only that, it avoids this kind of, jolt forward. Right? So that's something what are you doing? No, that's why we do it. We don't want to upset our virtual passengers. And they'll be like, you're a genius. I need to sit beside you. Right? So if you see people slapping on the brakes, what were you doing? I was just doing my braking test. In the real world, they tend to go differential braking to make sure that, the brakes are working and our passengers now, haven't been lunged forward. Right? The things you learn here, lads, is brilliant.
I imagine the view over the Alps is spectacular today. There's the museum buildings on the right, and we can see the Apron West coming up ahead. Let's turn left here onto Alpha. Here's the holding point marking, and we can see the signs indicating 2. We'll stop just short of it. Turning the plane slightly to the side, parking sideways like this, means we'll not blow propeller slipstreams onto any planes lining up behind us. It is time to perform our pre-departure checks.
Now, there's more reasons than just upsetting the plane behind you. You want to be turning your aircraft facing the wind or as close to it as you possibly can for your run-up test. Because if there was a strong wind and you're now facing not the runway but approaching the runway, you now have a strong wind coming in from your left-hand side or indeed your right-hand side that might be giving you false readings on the likes of your engine RPM. All right. Another question people ask, what is the recommended taxiing speed? What speed should I taxi my aircraft? And this is something that catches people out all the time, because some people go fast, some people go slow, and then you have everyone jamming on the brakes and it's a total mess. When you're taxiing, specifically with general aviation aircraft, you taxi at a speed that is slightly faster than walking speed. Slightly faster than walking speed. We'll probably walk at 3 to 4 miles an hour, right? So you're probably talking 6 or 7 miles an hour. In old money, then we put that back into knots. It's a fast walk, slightly faster than your walking pace, right? It's not a run, it's not a jog, it's a walk, but it's a slightly faster than your walking pace, your walking speed. That makes sense? It just means that the flows are easier, you're not speeding up, you're not getting to places before you realise it. Other traffic can kind of work out, I'll stay behind them because this is the speed we're doing. There's nothing worse than a fella booting it or someone else dragging their heels and you're like, would you come on? So slightly faster. Airliners are slightly different. It depends on the airport. There could be high-speed areas in which you can, use a high-speed exit and so on. Most airports, I think, are limited to about 20-odd knots for some of the airliners, no faster. In a built-up area or around other aircraft, you slow that right back, So usually 8 to 10 knots, that'll be the limit. 8 to 10 knots. In an airliner, probably 12 to 16. And then if you wanted to, up to about 24 knots. I wouldn't taxi... Certainly wouldn't go over 25 if I'm paying attention. And by that, you're, that's what you're doing it. So I got told off by the tower for taxiing too fast on the active while going into the hangar. Yeah. Like, you don't want to crawl, but keep it at walking speed or slightly faster than walking speed. It's a good thing to do in the sim. For built-up areas, you'll often see on the charts or on the ground, use minimum power. Yeah, 2 reasons why you'd see use minimum power. 1, yes, is the speed because it's built up, but 2 is also for noise abatement. Basically, they want you to keep the noise levels low, right? So you might see use minimum power. Some airports will have speed symbols written like a normal traffic sign, right? When taxiing across active runways, it is advisable to do a faster taxi speed to clear the active quicker. Usually, right? But at all times, you're the pilot in command. ATC might ask you to expedite, right? Or no delay. You might hear this sort of stuff on the radio. That just means get the finger out, move, will you? Right? You don't want to be crawling across an active runway, especially for crossing it. Get across it as safely, but as quickly as you can, right? Because you've now created an obstacle for everyone. So you don't want to be waiting around there. So you want to get off the runway as safely, but as quickly as you can, right? Rafe, good to see you, buddy. And Jet Blast, of course. Yeah. Jet Blast for all the Ryanair passengers who have to walk for ages on the ground to get to the plane. Correct. Yes. But sure, if Elon buys it, sure, we'll all be in Teslas now. It'd be great. But yeah, so people always ask, look, what speed should I do? Slightly walking than fasting. That was terrible. Slightly walking than faster pace. Slightly faster than walking pace. All right. And then turning your aircraft into the wind. Yes, it's, the aircraft behind you or whatnot, but also you're going to get a more accurate read on your instruments based on what wind flow is hitting off the front of that aircraft, in particular, your prop, right? Some aircraft, you need to start to make sure they're pointing into the wind. Jet engines are a devil for that. You can't have winds blowing in behind them. It upsets the thing. You're going to put them under pressure. You have to turn them into the wind. It's amazing how much you have to consider. Ground crews tend to look after this for you, but as a pilot, be aware of it,
We set the parking brake and pick up our checklist again. Pre-takeoff checks. Park brake set. Flight controls. Let's run all of them to the ends, looking at the in-game yoke and pedals as we do, verifying that we can manipulate the controls in full deflection with our peripherals. In non-simulator operations, this would also make sure that the control cables are all set up correctly and working without issues. We check the PFD for no red X's, and they're all looking good here. The altimeter now needs to be set up. We can either find the local pressure on the weather report or figure it out by ourselves. I'll show you how. If you're playing with live weather, you can find current pressure at St. Gallen. It's found right here inside the Navigraph charts. Go to the airport and click weather. You'll see the pressure under the altimeter. The pressure is given in both hectopascals and inches of mercury. The pressure shows up here and is set with a barometer knob here. But if you're not playing on live weather, there's another way to set up your altimeter with an unknown pressure situation. First, we find the elevation of the airport. The elevation for all airports are available in Navigraph charts, right under General, right here. Now we simply turn the baro knob until the altimeter shows the airport elevation. The current sea level pressure can then be read on the altimeter's barometer reading. Also, we set up the standby altimeter with the same pressure value. You do that by turning this knob down here and reading the pressure on the small scale inside the instrument. We check that all other standby instruments are looking okay. The airspeed indicator should be at 0, and the artificial horizon should show a centered position. We now check that the fuel capacity looks about right. We'll explore fuel calculations at a later time. For now, this is more than enough for our short flight today. We make sure the mixture is set at rich in preparation for the engine run-up. We check that the fuel selector is in both. We set the trim for takeoff. This is done by rotating the trim wheel until the white marking aligns with the reference marking as shown here. It's time for the run-up. This will test the engine at close to cruise power. Run the throttle up to 1800 RPM. We'll make sure the brakes are holding the airplane in place by looking outside. We'll go down to the magneto switch. In the current position, the ignition of the engine is being provided by 2 separate magnetos, providing 2 separate sparks inside every cylinder. We'll test that both are working independently. Turn the key 1 notch to the left. We're now running on a single magneto. We should see a drop in RPM since a single magneto is providing less stable ignition compared to dual operation. And we do, as you can see here, we're below 1800 RPM. At the same time, since the engine keeps running, we know that the 1 magneto is operational. Turn the key back to both and make sure the RPM picks up again. Let's do the same thing, but for the other magneto. Turn the key 2 notches to the left. We're now running on the other magneto. Looks good, let's go back to both. Magnetos checked, and they're looking good. Okay, let's check our engine instruments. All in the green, and we have good voltage, no warnings. We verify the same thing on the annunciator panel. No warnings here either. We now perform an idle check. This means running the power all the way back to idle. The propeller should keep spinning, no problemo. We'd go back to 1000 RPM now. That concludes the engine run-up. Nice work. We now check that the flaps are set for takeoff. We'll use flaps up for our takeoff today. It's a good idea to make sure the flaps are up by also visually checking their position on the wings. Okay, it's time to go. Before we start taxiing out on the runway, let's make sure we know what we're going to do. Today, I plan on 1 pattern around the airport and then a full stop landing. Having a look at the Navigraph charts, we can remind ourselves of the traffic pattern layout. Taking off, we'll climb to 1,000 feet above the ground, which is about 2,300 here. We'll again join the left-hand pattern just like we've practiced. It'll be a quick lap before we turn back. We're ready. We switch our strobe lights on. This tells other planes we're preparing to enter the runway. We can now release the parking brake and line up. We checked out the runway and approach sectors, looking good, making sure we can see no other traffic. Once on the runway, we're back in a familiar position. This is where we've been starting our previous lessons. Nice work. Let me quickly fly this pattern, and then we'll talk about the after landing procedures as well. All right, I'm pretty happy with that landing. What do you think? I guess I'll see what the analytics say about it afterwards. For now, we'll slow down to a good taxi speed. I'll quickly check our charts for our exit. Here at St. Gallen, it's probably best to roll all the way to the end and exit on the taxiway called November. Okay, there it is. Let's turn left. Once we clear the runway, we can retract our flaps and shut off the strobe lights. Make sure you keep control of your airplane while you do this. Okay, looking at the taxi plate again, we can see that apron Bravo is located just beyond the 4 long hangars here. I can see them there on the right. Let's go to apron B. Here's our parking spot. Nice. Good job. One stop, we'll pick up the checklist. We checked that we did everything by heart correctly. Flaps were up, strobe lights were off. It's time to secure the airplane checklist. Parking brake, set. Throttle, idle. Electrical equipment, let's switch off all of these switches. Avionics, off. Both white buttons go to the off position. Mixture, idle cutout. This starves the engine of fuel and we have a clean shutoff. We let the prop stop. Magnetos all the way to the left, which switches off both ignition coils. Master switch, off. That means both red switches, which includes the main battery and the alternator. Finally, we set the standby battery to off. This depowers the plane fully. As a precaution, the fuel selector is then set to left or right. This prevents fuel flow from flowing between the tanks during parking. That concludes a whole flight covering all the procedures. You know exactly how to start up and shut down the Cessna. We're ready for our cross-country flight.
As you can see, flying the Cessna involves a lot more than maneuvering and aerodynamics. The ground operations knowledge that we've covered in this lesson will allow us to find our way around new airports, as well as to operate the Cessna safely from point A to point B. On your training lesson, you will start at apron Bravo at St. Gallen, fully cold and dark, and you'll be asked to perform the ground checks, and that includes all of them. Then you'll fly a lap in the pattern before returning to your parking area again, just like Jason did. Before you head over to St. Gallen, make sure you can access your ground chart and acquaint yourself with the functionality of it. I personally prefer to have Navigraph charts on my tablet while I fly on my desktop computer. That way I can operate, pan around, and check my taxiways without having to switch between the simulator and the web browser. But you can also use charts in your browser window, on your phone, or even in-game via the in-game panel. Enjoy your training. And remember, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps us to further improve and spread our flight training content right here on YouTube.
Okay, sweet. So we're going to progress now with this lesson. Now, what I've done, I've brought up my Navigraph charts on the iPad, and our checklist on the iPad. You go onto the website, you can get access to it there, and that's where we're going to be doing or running our checklists from that here on the iPad. So that's what we're looking at. Before start, taxi, the whole shebang, all the way down. All right, so that's what we're going to work off for today. This lesson is going to be just what we've done on the video here. All right, so the video review, we've now covered how to perform a full startup and associated ground checks. Hello, Kat. Before departure, as well as the key steps after landing. We should also feel comfortable and confident navigating airports with taxiway charts. You can also use the free charts inside of Microsoft Flight Sim. PS Mirandai, the Lido charts, yeah, if they have it for the airport, yes. At the start of the lesson, you'll be parked at Apron Bravo, taxi out and take a right onto the taxiway November, and we follow it until we reach the holding point on Alpha on our left. Stop here, hold short, complete our engine run-up, and once it's done, time to take off, fly a lap, and then we'll head around back in. After we land, we taxi back to the Apron Bravo, complete our final checks, and that'll be it. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So a couple of questions before we move on. At run-up power, you performed the mag check. What's expected, or what is the expected normal result? All right. Forsex Shark, good to see you, man. Roy says, don't forget to update your Navigraph AirAct database. Also, is today update day? Ooh, on yourself. So at run-up, switching to left or right shuts the engine down. Switching to left or right causes a large or rough drop. Switching left or right causes no RPM change, or switching to the left or right shows a small RPM drop, returning to both restores the baseline. The answer is D. Now, with a Cessna, particularly with the Cessna, you should see a drop of somewhere between 50 and about 120 RPM. If it goes beyond that, you have an issue, right? If it goes beyond 125 RPM on a Cessna 172, you have an issue, right? Slight drop, 50 to 100 is about right. You should see that. Now, aircraft developers sometimes get this wrong. They'll drop 200 or 300 Carinado on some of their aircraft, right? So again, it's a limitation of the sim more so than the actual airplane, right? So how should the mixture control be set before engaging the starter? Now, I'm going to scratch my head with this one. The mixture control set, according to Navigraph, should be idle cutoff. My learning has been full rich, right? So Navigraph wants your mixture control set before engaging the starter at idle cutoff. This is where, according to Cessna's own POH, it's on full rich, right? Navigraph are telling me it should be idle cutoff. The standard position for starting, as it provides full aspiration during cranking, mixture will be pushed to full rich as the ignition catches. I think this comes down to the type of aircraft. I've always started an airplane with the mixture rich, always. I've never I'm aware some fellas do it as they turn and crank, then they introduce the mixture once it starts, right? But for this course, they're telling us idle cutoff. Okay. If local pressure is unknown, how do we set the altimeter? It's one of these simple things, but it's only simple when you realize it. The elevation of your airport is going to be marked on your chart, right? Or you can get it on SkyVector if you need to. You'll see what the airport elevation is. When you load in with the sim, if your altimeter is not matching the elevation of the airport, well, you can dial it down or up in order to get it. That is particularly useful if you do not know what the local pressurization is, what the barometer reading is. Yeah. Now, we'll always know what the baro is usually, right? Because we're going to know, we'll get it from our ATIS, or we'll look at the METAR, or ATC will probably tell us, right? Or just pressed B. There you go. So we set the altimeter to 0, turn the knob until the altimeter shows the airport elevation, leave it at default, or set pressure based on the nearest large airport. We would turn the baro knob until the altimeter shows the airport elevation. So the answer is B. If your airport elevation is 1,000, you turn that down until your altimeter reads 1,000. All right. In Navigraph charts, how are taxiways usually shown? Green letters inside red boxes, blue letters inside white boxes, yellow letters inside black boxes, or white numbers inside black circles. They tend to be yellow letters inside black boxes. All right. So if we're ready to go, we're going to go to the briefing. Another quick video here just to get it started up.
Today, we're getting to know the Cessna more closely. First priority is to make sure you have access to the Navigraph Academy checklist. This is available for free from the Resources tab on the left. Once you have it ready, start the simulator. Go to the Activities tab, scroll to the right, and go to Custom Content. This is the first lesson in Phase 2, so you'll find it on the second row. You will start on the ground. The aircraft is fully shut off, cold and dark. Begin following the checklist and pay attention to the proper procedures as given in the lesson video. Once you're ready to taxi, go to the holding point from runway 10. Remember to pick the correct taxiway on your way out. Do your run-up. When ready to taxi out, take off and perform a single lap in the pattern. After landing, taxi back to the apron Bravo. Then perform your shutdown procedures. Coming back on the website, check how you did. Good luck and have fun.
Right. It's all happening now, lads. Okie dokie. So today is our chance to put theory into practice. We're going to take the controls of the 172, perform the complete pre-flight sequence, checklist, use the system monitoring. The lesson is all about learning by doing. As we power up the engine and review the instruments, keep in mind that accuracy and attention to detail are the keys to safety. With Navigraph charts at your side, you'll taxi out and take off just as you would in real life. So what do we need to do? We're going to start on the apron Bravo, fully shut down. We're going to start up the aircraft according to the checklist, taxi to holding point Alpha, perform our engine run up. Then we're going to take off, do one lap, land, taxi back to apron Bravo, and shut it all down. Are we happy enough? Ground procedures will be monitored. You need to taxi to the correct way to the departure as well as back. Flight information, we're at St. Gallen, on the ground at apron Bravo, fully cold and dark. It's 2 o'clock-ish in the afternoon, daylight conditions, scattered clouds of 7,000, temperature 24 degrees, altimeter is 909 or 8 hectopascals, and the winds are calm. Right, well, let's go in and do the gadget, shall we? So, ground operations, and this is what we're going to do. So I have my Navigraph checklist loaded up on the iPad here, so I'm going to be following those, and I'll follow those with you. And we'll open up Navigraph charts here, because that'll put our aircraft where it needs to be. So we're going to be at St. Gallen. Simlink needs to be running. It is running. We might have to start the flight for this to activate. And let's see what happens. Okay, so let the sim load up and we see what happens. RGB, there's our aircraft. And we'll let our own systems come to life. There's flow after firing up. Head tracking. Make sure all my views are working, which they are. I shouldn't be hearing a sound, but I am. Okay. Let's see here now. So what I want to do first, I just want to make sure that our sim is running at full pelt. Oh. Tungsten, thank you very much indeed, dude. Have a great day. Have a great day. Okay, so here we are. So quick check on what we're doing. So the parking brakes currently are set to off. We're going to activate the parking brake. We have our fuel shut-off valve. So let's go with the checklist and then see what happens, right? So we'll start off at the beginning. So checklists. So we're going to have our pre-flight on the ground, brakes set, circuit breakers, we're going to check that they're all in. Also, is the remove before flight already removed? It is. So the very first thing you do is you're removed before flight, right? Anyway, I digress. So brakes are set, circuit breakers, we're going to check these guys, make sure all is okay. Usually you feel these by hand in the real aircraft. Gently put your fingers over them and you'll know if the circuit breaker has been popped. They all look good to me. Electrical equipment is off. Avionics bus 1 and 2 are off. Fuel selector valve will now go to both. And our fuel shut-off valve is going to be in. Okay, that's our cockpit setup. Next is going to be before our engine starts. So yes, they are telling us open the throttle 1/4 inch. Right? Mixture should be on idle cutoff. Standby battery, we're going to hold and test. And we wait for about 10 seconds. Okay. We're going to put it to arm. Gyros are spinning up and our screen is coming on. Engine indicators, we should have no red X's there, the red X's. So here's our engine, so that's all looking good. We are getting oil pressure warning, so that's fine. Our bus E, right, our essential bus, minimum 24 volts, we got 24.8, and the amps are drawing. Our main electrical bus is reading 0, so that's good. Standby battery annunciation is shown, which it is here, right? Standby battery is on. Beacon light will now be turned on. Propeller area is to be clear. And we're going to go ahead and turn on the master switch. Now, an extra bonus to this real world stuff, you'd make sure that the landing gear handle's in the down position if they were retractable. You'd also make sure that the flap handle is in a neutral position, as in when you turn on the battery, they're not automatically going to start working. This is more real world stuff. You don't want to catch your fingers in it. So we're going to go master battery on and the alternator. They're verified as on. The engine is cold, so we're going to go fuel pump to on. So come down here, turn on our fuel pump. Mixture rich. And our fuel flow, we should see it here. If we were to increase the throttle, that should lift. It doesn't display it very well here on this machine, so let's not worry about that. Fuel mixture to idle cut off and fuel pump off. Okay. Next up is going to be an engine start. So to do this, Scarface will come in. To do this, we're going to go on our mags. We're going to go right, left, both. Then we'll give our clear prop and we're going to go for a start. So oil pressure at ignition should be green, and then our batteries charging, low volts not shown, and then avionics come on. All right, so let's give her a start. I forgot about the mixture and I don't have a bound. We'll try that again. Mixture, and there's our start. Okay. So as the ignition turns on, as the engine cranks, we then put in the mixture according to this. So oil pressure, we should be seeing oil pressure. It's in the green. Oil temperature will take a while to rise. Our electrical system, our main and essential bus are now reading that we have voltage, and the amps are showing 0 or positive. That's good. We don't have a low volt warning on the annunciator, and we now turn on our avionics switches, bus 1 and bus 2. Okay. Next up is going to be for our taxiway. Well, let's go in and have a look at the charts. So, taxiway, we're down here at Bravo. We're going to taxi out. We're going to make a right-hand turn on November, hang a left, and we're going to hold short runway 10 at Alpha. That's where we're going to do our run-up test. We're going to depart runway 10, left-hand pattern, come back in and land. So that's our taxi briefing. Also in the real world, your takeoff briefing, if we haven't taken off by a certain point, that's where we abort the landing. We don't need to get into that for today, right? Warm up the engine at 1000 RPM. It's not on the checklist, but yeah, you should. Which is roughly there, and we should, in real world, lean out some of the mixture. Right? Anyway, so taxi route has been done. We're going to go ahead now and turn on our taxi light. Nav lights will turn on for the crack as well. Left and right side, no obstacles. Then we're going to do our brakes, and that's going to bring us all the way up to our run-up. All right? So we need to OK the screen over here, get rid of our checklist for the moment, and a quick look around the aircraft to make sure no obstacles. We're going to go brakes off, and we're going to taxi forward. We're rolling. We're going to use our right toe brake. Now we use our left toe brake. Our brakes are working, right? Nothing coming down our left side, and we're going to go over here to our right side. And we watch our speed. Now, as we're taxiing as well, depends on the airport, but you would also have the use of your transponder. So we'll stick that on as we taxi forward. Also, our barrow, it is already set for us, and our direction indicator is lined up with our magnetic heading as well, right? Watch your taxi speed. Taxi forward. Beautiful day for flying, isn't it? Gorgeous. Alright, say go. Who's this? Hamad, welcome in. Good to see you. Okay, so Alpha, hang a left here. And we'll take a bit of a wide berth because we want to face and point the nose into the wind. So we'll come over this neck of the woods. Roughly here will do. Okay, so parking brakes now come on. Bring back up our checklists. So brakes are set. Flight controls we're going to check. So we're going to go full forward, full back, full left, full right. Check the rudders moving here as well. We can verify the movement of our ailerons. We can see things moving around. Perfect. Alright, next up. Flight instruments, no red X's, we're looking good. Altimeter set. Standby altimeter barrow set. That's set. Backup instruments are okay. So, fuel quantity sufficient, which it is. We have just over 10 gallons. Fuel selector is set to both. Mixture fully rich. Trim set for takeoff. Roughly there. Roughly there. Throttle, we're going to increase our throttle now up to 1800 RPM. Easy now. That's about right-ish, give or take. 10 or 20 we don't mind. So at this stage now we're going to check our mag. So we're going to go for our mag check. So we're now going to go from boat to the right mag. There's a drop of about 100. Back to both. Now we'll check our left mag. There's a drop of about 100. Back to both. No, nothing on our annunciators. That's looking good. Engine instruments are all green. Throttle, we're going to idle. Make sure it doesn't cut out. That's good. Back to 1000. Flaps for takeoff. We're not going to use flaps. Departure procedure. So what we're doing here, we're going to be doing a pattern. We're going to take off, fly a full pattern, and land. When it comes to our taxi, if we haven't managed to achieve takeoff by roughly the midway point where we started off from, we abort the landing. Right. That's our departure briefing complete. Next up, line up. So we're going to continue on. So we're going to put on our strobe lights. Parking brake will be released, and then a runway to be clear. Then we'll have our cruise checklist, our climb, and then cruise. Alright, let's do our thing. So get ourselves straightened up here. We're going to check our approach to make sure that's clear, which it is. We're going to check our departure to make sure that's clear, which it is. And we'll do a small back taxi here as well, just to give us the full runway. So we're now on the active. So far everything's looking good. Usually when you're on the ground taxiing around, you would pull the mixture a slight bit. But for this, we don't need to worry. Easy when we turn, we don't have to scrub the tyres. Alrighty. So the same crack again, just as we did in our previous flights. We're going to take off. Once we get to about 300 feet, we're going to do a quick check. As we continue, once we're about 300 feet from our pattern altitude, we hang a left, and then we turn on the downwind leg, and that's when we're going to do our final checks. So our climbing checklist is going to be throttle, mixture, and engine instruments. All right. So if we're ready to go, quick check on everything. We're not using flaps. Lights are where they need to be. Landing lights should be on here as well. And well, let's head her on. Power coming in. Mixture is rich. Takeoff power set. Airspeed's alive. Looking good so far. 55 knots, we're getting light. Yep, see daisy. Positive rate of climb. And we're indicating. Try and keep the runway center line. We pitch for about 74 knots. Coming up on 300 feet. Engine instruments all in the green. We're not using any flaps. Continue. Throttle's full, mixture's rich. We're now at 500 feet. Again, all is looking good. Now with 300 feet to go to our pattern altitude, we're going to start our left turn. Make sure it's coordinated. Watch the climb. Speed is still good. Now we're on the crosswind. Let's roll out. There's 2,300 feet. Ease back our power a little bit, get ourselves stable. Bit of trim here to help us out. About 2,300 on our RPM. Quick look out the window. There's our reference point. That's looking good. Airport is behind us. There it is. And we're going to start another left-hand turn. And we're now going to turn onto the downwind leg. Watch our pitch in the turn. Watch our power and our speed. We're slightly high. We'll roll out onto our downwind leg. Roughly here. We should be perpendicular to the runway. There it be. Okay, so our descent checklist. Make sure if we need it, baro is already set. Standby altimeter is already set. And our approach procedure. We're going to be landing on runway 10. Now, once we come a beam to our touchdown point, remember, this is where we start slowing down. So we're going to drop the RPM down to about 2,000. And we need to watch our altitude as we do this. Small bit of trim. Airspeed is coming down. And once we're in that 45-degree angle from our touchdown zone, that's where we reduce power further and we'll start our turn in. So, power to about 1,700 RPM. And let's start our turn. We can start descending here now as well. Fuel selector is set to both. Mixture rich. Landing light is on. Taxi light is on. Autopilot is turned off. Speed is coming down nicely. Start dropping off our altitude. Easing out. We're a little bit close. This will be fun. There's 2,000 feet. We also threw in a notch of flaps. That was a little bit late though, but we're okay for our speed. Now we're high here, so we want to be careful. So we're going to power down a little bit. We'll go with a second notch of flaps. We're well within our speed constraints, and we're going to start our turn in. We can go for 30 degrees here. Watch your speed. Alright-ish, sorta, almost, sorta, kinda. Not as tasty as our last one, but we'll see what happens. Approach speed is now good. It's going to drop. We want to be at around 61 knots over the threshold. Watch the power. Watch the speed. Watch our touchdown zone. Bit of power. Easy. Aim for the center line. Keep it going. Watch your touchdown. Flare the aircraft. There's a touch on the back. Gently let the nose come down on the front. And we have landed. So after landing, flaps, once we clear the runway, flaps will go up, strobe light will come off, and we're going to taxi down all the way down to the end of the runway, and then we're going to hang a left. We'll be back onto November, and then we're going to turn right in on Bravo. So far so good. No immediate problems or worries. We'll stay going. Easing out. Yeah, baby. Hey, Bocelli, good to see you. So the taxiway signs, I think they're default to this airport. Okay, so we're going to clear the runway here, hang a left on November. Watch your speed. Exit the runway. And it's only when we pass the stop bar that we're actually clear of the runway, right? Them taxiway signs are massive. Okay, we're now clear of the runway. Flaps up. Strobe lights coming off. Landing lights coming off. Keep our taxi lights on. And now we're just taxiing back. And we're going to turn into Bravo, and that's where we'll do our full shutdown. Like the taxiway lights are always dodge looking. The alignment of them is always dodge. I mean, they're far too over. Taxiway lights usually go on the side. They're okay up here, but back there they look shagged. Make sure you don't hit any parked vehicles. You'll be made famous, Murphy. This is Charlie 6 we're passing here now, the hangar block. Charlie 5 is next. And we'll stay going until we get to the Bravo apron. It might be signposted, if not we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled. We don't see it just yet. Victor, yeah, this is a Cessna 172. Say nothing, Murphy. We were just checking the ground. Yeah. We were just checking the ground. Here's Bravo. Jesus. I'll do well, you know. Right, we got ourselves turned around here. Right. So after takeoff, or after landing, park and brake, throttle idle, electrical equipment now coming off. So we'll go avionics, taxi light, nav and beacon stay on for the minute. Mixture mag, so mixture idle cut. Mags off. Beacon taxi off. Fuel selector left or right, so all electrics coming off. Battery alternator standby. Fuel tank out, and that's us done and dusted. Right, I wonder will I lose points now, you know. Let's end the flight. You missed your taxiway, you big idiot. You know, or the Navigraph Academy equivalent of calling me a big idiot, right? We'll see what the story is though. Right, get in there now. So lesson in progress. So this will all complete all of this, and then we'll see what happens, right? Yeah, I was checking the fuel pumps. Yeah. I was following a butterfly. Right. That's exactly what it was. Jesus. Were you full flaps on final? No. Didn't think I needed it. They could give out to us about that as well. But like, that's pilot preference. It'd be interesting, in fact, if I lose points because I didn't use full flaps. But sometimes you don't need full flaps. I was, my speed management was okay. So this is going to be interesting. Again, like, okay, yeah, you want to pass things, right? But what's great about Navigraph Academy is if you don't pass, they're going to tell you, they're going to show you what went wrong. And then you're like, right, I need to go back and do this again. You know what I mean? MDA is here. Good to see you, man. Hope you're well, buddy. How did your Star Citizen go? Man, the more I'm watching it, I'm like, jeez, I'd love a nail shot of that. But it's just something, if I dive into it, we won't get out, Sunjammer, good to see you. I got failed for that the other day, the first circuit. Oh, really? Right, well, let's have a look. We passed. Luckily enough, we passed. Okay, so we completed the ground operations. Let's review our score. All right, so taxiway, perfect. Lining up, perfect. Exit and taxiway November. It was happy with everything. Even though, we kind of shagged it at the start. But that's what our flight looked like. So we started, we taxied, we did a run up, we did a back taxi, we took off, we did the world's most strangest looking circuit, then we landed and back taxied, but made a total mess of it. Up here was where we had to do the, be Janie then, didn't I nearly forget it? But it's grand, right? Absolutely grand. So we passed that with flying colours, no issue there whatsoever. 100% across everything. Deadly, brilliant. So what's the takeaway lesson for Murphy? Don't get distracted. And I've parked 5 meters away from where I started. But again, the scenery could be better. The scenery could be better. And like the signage in the sim, default signage, it's particularly crap. It needs to be better. Like, I mean, there's a reason why there's like add-on taxiway markings. At real airports, there's great taxiway markings and they're very clear, But it is what it is. Happy enough that we passed. Happy days. Let's go to another lesson. The next lesson is going to be local navigation. We're going to be doing this one next week. Navigating visually is equal parts mastering the map and having a keen eye. Next week, we're going to leave the pattern behind us and we're going to go on our very first real navigation flight. It's a scenic lap around Lake Constance, crossing Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. We're going to learn how to set up Navigraph charts for navigation, selecting practical waypoints, and confirm our position the classic way by timing, heading, and referring to what we see out the window. This is proper VFR flying, so looking forward to this. We've all information and stuff and things, and there's going to be a video for next week as well. So yeah, so that's all going to be happening next week. All right. So what we're going to do now, folks, we're going to move over to our Navigraph briefing because we have a flight planned for this evening. We're scheduled to take off out of Los Angeles and we're going to be flying over to Phoenix, Arizona. So the expecting routing is already there. We have some options when it comes to sceneries. I'm using Inibill's LA. I'm using Phoenix from BM World. Right. When will you stream next week? We'll continue this one on Scarface at 1100 Zulu time. English is hard. Next Thursday. Every Thursday we do these pilot training streams. So I hope you like them. And every Thursday we will be here a live stream. Bangs, good to see you. Virtual pilot, Microsoft need to get 100% dude. 100%. But anyway, they'll get there. It's time to leave Los Angeles. We've trod the walk of fame and seen the Hollywood sign. Now we're heading to Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix Sky Harbor International, Arizona's busiest airport. It's also a key hub for domestic flights across the western United States. Surrounded by desert terrain and often hot, dry conditions, it's well known for smooth operations and clear weather flying. KPHX is nicknamed America's friendliest airport and was one of the first major US airports to offer a free, fully accessible, automated people mover system connecting terminals and parking. Ooh. Right, so let's go in and look at our SimBrief planage. And as I say, the aircraft we're using tonight is that of the PMDG 737. So we'll select this gadget from here. 800 series aircraft. And we'll go to the Prater edition. So block time is giving us 1 hour and 30. Departure at the moment out of LA is 25 right. Arrival is runway 08. We're on the DOTS 2 departure with the Hydra 1 arrival. Okay. So let's go ahead and generate all of that. While we're here, it's time to look at the weather. So what's happening this evening over this neck of the woods? So temperature. Los Angeles at the moment is 15 degrees. This evening, it's going to be similar. Phoenix, a little bit warmer, about 20, 22 degrees, right? Oh, I missed my flight number in SimBrief. Boz. Good man, naughty gnome. Hang on there now. A quick edit. We'll save all of that and we'll regenerate. So temperature's good. Wind, at the moment, relatively calm at ground level, 1 or 2 knots. Phoenix, a little bit windier. Let's go 10 o'clock when we get up there. It's going to be relatively calm. 3 or 4 knots. The wind, it's so very gentle. It's kind of doing mad stuff here because you have mountains. It's southerly. So the wind is blowing north. This is the stuff we wanted to be careful of. And that's the stuff hitting Texas. Because that'll get fierce interesting later on. But anyway, that's the wind speed at ground level. At cruise level, we're going to get a tailwind. We just will. So we're expecting a bit of a tailwind for this flight in the region of about 50 to 60 knots. All right. What about the sky conditions? So let's look at cloud. So come 8 o'clock tonight, it's going to be overcast in Los Angeles, but there is a weird bit of a clearing in and around Phoenix. As time progresses, we could be lucky. We could be lucky. Right, kind of slow. Good to see you. I found you the other day after some video. I like your approach to guiding and explanations. Well, thank you very much. Very kind of you. Cheers, buddy. He'd be flying the wrong direction if not. Wait, what? He'll be fine. So yeah, Phoenix looks like it's going to be kind of clear later on. Ish, right? It'll be cloudy until we get there. What about precip? This is the important bit. Is there going to be rain? So in LA, most likely, yes. There's a band of rain going across LA, and there's actually snow further north of that, which is shocking. Over to Phoenix, though, there's no precip expected. So I think we're looking good. The weather over the next few days, that's this mad band coming across, but it's not going to affect us. All right. So I'm happy enough with the winds. I'm happy enough with the sky conditions, the cloud and precip. Relatively nothing major going on with the weather, although it will be cloudy. Stefan, good to see you. This is called VentUSky. VentUSky.com, great website. They're similar to like the Windy app and all this. I find VentUSky incredibly accurate. You know, especially for Ireland. I don't know what it's like worldwide, but in Ireland, it's bang on, right? Right. So, SimBrief planning, that's done. Our weather briefing, that's done. We're going to move this guy over and we're now going to go in and test some scenery. And we're also going to make sure our connection to the VATSIM network is working. So over to LA and our departure that they were saying while we're waiting, we will import the flight from SimBrief into our charts. LA to Phoenix. I was in Phoenix before. 25 right is our departure. So we're just here. Bearing in mind, we parked down here the last day down at Cargo. So that's where we're going to start from. And we'll load into the sim. Real time, it's like 5 in the morning. Yeah, we'll load in and see what happens. It's IF4 conditions here because it's raining. Well, there is rain here and it's also cloudy. So we'll see what happens, right? Now, once this loads up, there's other things we need to be setting up because we have all our wing gear, all this wind control gear in front of us, right? So we'll see what the crack is here now once she loads up. LAX is just heavy on machines, man. It just is. Easy now, Jemima. Now, our situation should improve when we get down to Phoenix. But even landing in here the other night, it was like, you know, not great on performance. You know what I mean? So let me see. Let's fire up our SimApp Pro stuff because I want to use this evening. So this just should work out of the box, shouldn't it? Look for some ground power. There we go. One up here on top, can't see a thing. Do we have a head torch? Yes, we do. We're going to go battery, emergency lights, and get our panel lights on. And there's some sounds coming in. We will get our logo, anti-collision, and wing lights turned on. We could probably turn on our dome light here as well. Ground power, go ahead and turn on. Lovely. And we're looking pretty good here. So we're just going to wait for these systems to start up. At the same time, we're going to fire up some V-Pilot. I'm going to do the same over here. It's never great stuck behind Murph. No, no. Keep me far out of the way. Right, scanning for models. That's all done. We're going to connect to the VATSIM network. Not connected. Now we're connected. And we're connected. Good stuff. We're going to wait for other aircraft to appear. Yeah, the sim really struggles here. Let's get our speed up here so we can move around. So we're looking for other aircraft. Do we have any? Yeah, there's an aircraft over there. I imagine that's Sunjammer. Okay, so we'll jump in and test our radios. So we want CTAF, not CTAF ALAX. So 120.950, 120.950 on my radios over here. Make sure that's all working. 120.950. LA traffic, Firefly 235, radio check. If there's anyone on frequency, they'll give us a shout back. Anti-collision lights, usually, yeah, they probably should be off. I wonder if Sunjammer on the gadget. Are you on ATC? LA traffic, Firefly 235, radio check. Do. But the fact we can see it, but if you can...
263, radio check.
Roger, 5x5.
Thank you. 5x5.
Our radios work. Excellent. Right, now, the wind control gear, which is all this stuff up here that I'm using, I just want to make sure everything's operational. Now, why did that move? Trim move. Ah, that's why it moved. Okay. Right, so we're going to be checking here. So let's see what we can appear on our maps. Let's see here. Into our radio. Wait some actions. That's all grand. Back. FMC. Pause in it. KLAX. IRS, direct from the GPS, force it in, route page, request the flight plan, and now we should be able to see all of this. Now, wasn't there, didn't we say, was it chase plane we wanted to turn off with this pop-out window management thingy? So, let's see. We'll disable chase plane for a second. Okay, now what I want to do to see can I pop out these panels. It's fine with chase plane. You get CTDs with reshade. Oh, okay. Right, into our Xenon Edge, and we'll stop the widgets for a second, and we're going to pop out these guys. Dish. here's one. And here's two. And will we be bold and grab three? Okay, so we want this guy to be in the middle, right? So we want you to go left side. Yeah, no. I want you to go on the right. We want you to go in the middle. And we want you to go on the left. Okay, that did not work. So let's have a look. We want you in the middle. Do we need him in the middle? No, we'll just use these two guys. And then re-enable chase plane. Okay, sweet. IRS align, packs checked, hydraulics, right? You have to completely uninstall Reshade. If I disable it, it would re-enable it and pop them out and crash. Really, naughty? Yeah, I've not. I do have this bar thing, which is annoying, but I can get over that, you know. Bears Mike, good to see you, buddy. So now I have information on the two screens here ahead of me. If you're watching this on the vertical stream, if you're not watching on the vertical stream, well, this is what I'm looking at now. So I have my two screens here, look. And they all work, right? So for example, if I wanted to do, we say, I don't know, let's turn some stuff on. We want weather, traffic, are we inches of mercury or hecto? So inches of... Okay, that's an issue. That works. Where's this guy turning? So that should be inches. Oh, they both need to be moved? That's interesting. Okay. DK, good to see you. Auto pop-up can remove the bar. There is an option. Yeah, I need to look at that auto pop-out thing. Right, what else can we do? Can we show some terrain? Do it over here. And here. So this should be displaying stuff on our screen. It should be working. What else can we do? So speed, heading, alt, V speed. Okay, that won't work. Grand. Flight directors 1 and 2. Forgot them the last stage, remember? Auto throttle. Engage and disengage. That's working. It's deadly, isn't it? That's what was crashing with Reshade, not the manually popping it out. Ah, very good. Okay, okay. So yeah, it was crashing with Reshade. Okay, makes sense. Autopilot engage. That'll be LNAV. Command 1, disengage. So that works. Okay, everything appears to be working. Nice. Stefan, take it easy, buddy. Right, so I'm happy enough with the setup here. The scenery we knew from last time round, but let's just reacquaint ourselves with our flight plan stuff this evening. We'll go IF4, and this is what our flight plan is going to look like. So we shall be departing. I'll keep it on this. We're going to be departing out of LA. So we're down here at the moment at FedEx. We're planning to depart on the 25s. We are on the DOTS 2 departure, which is going to be Shafe, PV, Halts, Dots, Wild, all the way over to, is it Snerry? Snerry? From there, straight across VOR here are TACAN at BLH, Blythe. And then we're on the Hydra 1 arrival for 08 into Phoenix. Scenery? Or scenery maybe, yeah. Okay. Right, airport information. So, where we're located appears into the owl gadget there now. Please, Bajani, then, if you wouldn't mind terribly, please. There you go. Right, let's look at the airport first and foremost. Any requirements here given out to us? Runway incursion risk. Turbulence may be detected. For aircraft wingspan greater. Major construction on airport daily. Aircraft use minimal power when taxiing. Blast hazard. Aircraft that come to a stop has a moment or momentum interrupted while turning and taxiing into a parking position must stop and be towed. Ooh. Alright. So we'll be taxiing up this way. Now, number one is what? Contact ground control prior to pushback to taxi lane Alpha 2. It's okay. Foxtrot and then across. Alright, let's look at our departure leg. So, climb heading 251 to 640, then climb direct to Hipper or Docker, at or below 3,000 feet, cross track 221 or 220. Then we cross Wheeler or Adore at or below 5,000, then on predicted route to Dots at or above 15,000. Right. So we're going this way. Take off, 640, left. Then by Shafe, Heavy, Pulse, Dots, and then Wild, Castaway, and Scenery. Fairly straightforward. Climb via the SID. Right? Okay, our en route section is pretty basic. We'll get some nice views for sure, though. The Eagle Mountains and stuff. Yeah, this is going to be nice. Okay, our arrival. So, let me see. We're coming in from our last waypoint here. Blythe, Skull, Swoon. There's Skull. There's the VOR at Blythe. So, at Skull, we need to be at 280 knots, flight level 250. Fixed altitude. Not below 24,000 feet, and then we're on the way in. Once we get to Hydra, it's going to be between 190 and 15,000 at 265 knots. There's a hold here. Then we're heading in this way. Jamal, Fowley, and Balt. So runway 8 from Gila, which is here. On track 054 to Punt, which is there. So we're going up this way, right? We're going up the northern way, right? On this wave, good to see you. Then on track to Tech, Tesla, and then on to Falgo, and then Kagor at 5,000 to Jamil. Once we get to Jamil, expect ILS runway 8 approach or radar vectors to final approach. So that's pretty much good. If we're going to do if we're going to go straight in ILS 08, let's plan that. We should be here. That's very nice and tidy. That's straight to Jamil and then straight in for a 08. Okay, let's have a look at the ILS. So, Informazione, we can see Phoenix approach, tower and ground. The localizer, our final approach course. Airport elevation, decision altitude, missed approach, climb to 3,000, then climbing left, turn to 5,000 feet on a heading of 280 outbound on the Phoenix VOR radial 336 to Avent. 15.9 miles out and hold. So we're flying in, we go missed, climb 3,000. As we get to 5,000, turn left heading 280, which is this maneuver here, look. See this guy here? And then we intercept the radial 336 degrees until we get up to the Deer Valley, Phoenix Deer Valley, and hold. Fairly straightforward. Glide slope coming in is going to be a 3 degree. The poppy lights. Missed approach, climb to tree, left turn of 5,000, up to 280, and then on the radial 33. Inbound 115, outbound 336. ILS or ILS grand, and then decision height. Localizer glide slope out, or the ILS, it's going to be 250. Okay. When we land, 08, what do we have? So we're cargo, we want to get over to the cargo stand. Now you have south cargo, you have eastbound FBOs, we've west cargo. It's going to be a taxi and a half to get out to these cargo stands. Isn't it? Your decision altitude is 1368. Your decision height is 250. Malky. It is an either or, yeah? Decision height 250. Decision altitude 1368. Airport elevation. Airport elevation is 1135. 1135 plus your 250 gives you 1368. But I'll always go by decision height. Usually that's what I put in. Decision altitude you can of course put in, but I'll always go decision height. So basically 250 feet above ground level is your minimum. Standard approach uses decision altitude. Does it? Same thing though. Or is it? It is the same thing. It's altitude above the elevated... it's altitude above the airport elevation. That's usually what I go on. But either or, it can be 1368 for altitude, or it can be 250 for decision height. Decision height is normally used for low vis approaches. But it's the same reading. As in, you're either going to be at 1,368 feet indicated, right, based on Barrow, or you're going to be 250 above ground level. Okie dokie. So our next little mission is to load in to Phoenix and check out the scenery, because I need to see where we can actually park, right? So aircraft works, sim works, buttons work, right? So if I exit this, end flight, the screens disappear, and we're going to load into Phoenix, which is all the way over here. So Phoenix Sky Harbor, let's have a look. So we want to be, here's the cargo down here. We can probably go on this neck of the woods. US Air Force stuff. Isn't it a shared base though? Like this ramp here, isn't that where they keep fighters and stuff? Or am I raving? This looks cargo. Let's go there. Actually, let's go here. Let's see what happens. That's good to me. And let's load in. Into Phoenix. So yeah, this is like the BM World scenery. Glide slope, I think it's called. So I'm hoping this is nice. Let's see what happens. Weird sound stuff.
Need to set parking brakes to request grounds.
Yes, Jemima. Now. Okay, aircraft's loaded. Now, them screens won't come back on. I think I need to use that app, lads, isn't it? The screen something. But if I use that app and I'm using Reshade, that could shag the whole thing up for me. So maybe I won't do that. Battery, lights, ground power. All right. We'll let those systems warm up. Let's go check out the airport, shall we? So we're going to be coming in from runway 8. Here's runway 8. let's just go and move around Phoenix here for a minute. Without it, you manually pop out the screens each time. Yeah. Okay. It may remember where the last were, but may not. Okay, so we're going to try and load in some of this photogrammetry so we try to avoid any stutters and stuff later on. Look at the mountains around Phoenix. Isn't it gorgeous? Phoenix is absolutely gorgeous, lads. Okay, so our landing is going to be runway 08. So let's have a look at the airport, get an idea of what's going to happen. Big stadium, look. Chase Field. Nice. Right. So we've briefed the weather, we've checked the aircraft, we've loaded in the sceneries, we've connected to VATSIM. So that's what we do on these Thursday VATSIM briefings. So just make sure we've forward planned what we're planning. We forward planned what we're going to be doing. Alright. So there's no access over to the left hand side, everything's over on our right. And from here we have terminals. Different passenger ones. We do have something down here now. American Airlines. So, maintenance facility perhaps? Maybe. Here's our terminals. They do have interiors. Interesting. The monorail, more terminals. I like that lighting, it's pretty. Coming soon. It's all coming soon. That's pretty decent scenery, this. Right, over to the main tower. Now this, it goes over the roadway, look. And there's a little bit of jiggery-pokery here with the scenery. There's a tower. There's a huge tower, isn't it? Okay. I'm trying to remember, when I was here, has the layout changed? Ah, yeah. So we landed, went in this way, then I had to walk down the way to like B54 or something. There D. There C. Maybe it was D. Yeah, I remember walking through here. Yeah, that's familiar. Alright, okay. Right, so cargo then. Northland Air, good to see you. Rented yourself a convertible Mustang at this airport. No way. So if we're looking for cargo and stuff, we could use this neck of the woods. This is cargo, right? Or we can go ahead and use the south ramp for east and west cargo. Swift Aviation. Who else is here? Cutter. That's an FBO, I'd say, is it? Interesting. Mustang Airport. National Guard have a spot here. Beautiful KC-135s. Arizona Air National Guard. That's pretty cool looking, isn't it? Plenty of aircraft. Alright, fairly straightforward. I mean, it's a big airport, but it looks fairly straightforward. That's out to the car park and rent a car. Yeah, it's a nice tidy airport, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to plan to park up this neck of the woods, so cargo GA ramp, that'll do us. The military side of the fence. This looks like cargo over here, though. It is. We FedEx and UPS and the devil knows what. Okay. It can be either or. That's much smaller in here. We'll aim for up here. Here, this will be fine. Interesting cars. Oh, Mustang. Duty free was tiny from what I remember. Ooh. Okay, so the scenery's loading. Good performance. No major problems. I'm happy enough with that. Phoenix, Arizona, Yankee. Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, so I don't think it'll remember my screen, so try it. Yeah, it does. Or at least it remembered them in this session, but it didn't remember where to put them. But they are loaded in. Okay. Okay, so our screens are there, which is handy, and then we can go weather if we need it. Yeah. That will work. That will absolutely work. Happy days. Right, that is us done for this afternoon's stream, friends. We've done our briefing, we've checked the weather, checked the airport, checked our scenery, we're able to connect to VATSIM, we reviewed our flight, most importantly checked our departure and arrival and our missed approach. So I'm fairly happy doing what we're doing now this evening. Tonight we're going to be flying this at 2000 Zulu time, live, and we're going to be on the VATSIM network doing it, which is going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Toto says he's going to try this with saying tensions tonight. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's what you want to do, man. That's what we want to do. So, lads, that's the story now. I want to thank you all so very much indeed for tuning in to today's stream, our pilot training. And as I say, every Thursday we'll do this. So we'll continue on with the Navigraph stuff, and then we'll be going into more... we'll start an ATC stuff and all that jazz later on, do you know? But have an awesome rest of your day. We're back to you in about 5.5 hours time, and well, it's all ready to go for tonight's flight. So thank you so much indeed for watching, and see you later. Holy crap. Holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. We're going in, that's it. There's no turning back at this stage. Jesus, mind the bears. Look at this big Jesus. Oh no, we're actually dying. Quick, get out. Oh no, we're Jesus. Oh. Where you can enjoy complimentary deluxe continental breakfast daily with afternoon hors d'oeuvres and a fully stocked honor bar. Good up there. Complimentary hot and cold beverages throughout the day. Fairmount Gold combines personalised...
I'm sorry, did you just say hors d'oeuvres?
Hors d'oeuvres. Hors d'oeuvres. Oh no, I made a terrible mistake.
Few men even consider the possibility of life on other planets. Yet, across the Gulf...
Ah, Jesus! What was that? I was about to say something and you hit me in the head. Christ! Hang on. I found more of these flamingos. Jesus!
Do you need a hand?
No, I don't need it. Do I need a hand?
It's heavy, yeah? Jesus, Murph!
No.
Fancy pedals.
Fancy pedals.
Uh-oh.
No. This is...
Steady.
Listen.
Hang on.
It's a hurricane. It's a hurricane. Oh, power off. Bit of right rudder. Bleed that speed. Oh, look at that! I gotta brake! Brake now! Brake! Oh, wait, where's your button? Here you are.
It's a fish!
Oh! In a hurricane!
Put it onto easy mode.
Thank you very much.
I should have stayed in that for a landing.
Can I just say, if you're busy any evening on Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Yeah,
I'm available.
Will you give